Even though it has already been a whole winter, everyone should also be able to recall any famous scenes. Nighttime car accident, bed play, filled the entire scene. A large number of named operators have gathered. Lapland in Texas. This pair of old friends harboring countless enmities and song for the future of Syracuse. And they parted ways, each offering their final reconciliation. Enduring winter dodged Antonio's attack. Let the head of Antonio be taken by his own lowly servant. Blood flowed into a large cross. In Lapland, when weapons challenge humanity, truck drivers who are at odds with each other and family members. However, when the parade procession arrived, they inexplicably lined up to welcome Ludmila is extremely unlucky but still walks the path of righteousness. Despite being repeatedly tormented by the nightmares brought on by Reed, she still saved the Red One who was abandoned by her grandmother. Didn't actually violate any laws. However, amidst the various pushes and shown signs, the Lightless family's industry went bankrupt. This matter is also recorded in the wine sent in the New Year's greeting. Despite these scenes being impressive enough, but the scene that touched me most, however, it was amidst the various factions vying for their own interests. When the naive first witness, Lucino, was knocked out and taken away. Lapland, as perceived by everyone, is the most chaotic and desolate. The first one dialed the emergency call that rescued Leno Taues. Thinking back to when I was a taxi driver in Lapland, how much they enjoy alleviating others' worries and comforting their hearts. I couldn't help but think, does this mean? In the complex game of interests in New VOL, excluding ordinary people like Lucino who didn't even enter the Bobby. Actually, it's Lapland being as whimsical as it wants without breaking any rules. Instead, the one who most adheres to what we consider the fundamental principles value others' lives and extend a helping hand. This sarcastic sharpness pierces the bone, and amidst the interweaving of multiple perspectives, unexpected yet reasonable character development holds the most unique charm of the Revealer-S storyline. Hello everyone, this is Yang Yan. Let's review the interpretation. The half-year anniversary plot Revealer-S from the update in November last year carried on from the end of the People of Saraksa 2 years ago. Completed the distinct image of Lapland alongside Texas, and the foreshadowing of the regicide by Belladonna's mother in the previous plot. At the same time, the SYRACU Sands reflects discussion on the proposition of idealism versus concrete practice. In the Revealer-S, they perform almost show ILY. Received further expansion and extension. This part extends and expands. It is not that barbarism progresses towards civilization. Adopt the strengths of the barbaric elements. It's not the dialectical negation and spiralous end as commonly understood. Civilization and desolation. The indistinguishable line between humans and beasts. In different historical periods and social statuses. All of them are entangled in the same ambiguous relationship. Just the evolution of time. That is, it refers to these complex entanglements. The dilemma of offense and defense, and among the inconsistent responses of the characters. How did the Revealer-S accomplish this? Why is it said that it is the end point of the path of Mir-El in the long night? Let's find out. If during the viewing process, what issues or ideas have been generated? We also welcome you to leave bold comments in the comment section or bullet screen. So let's get straight to it. Let's officially begin the long video for today. The narratives of all the Revealer-S are told from different viewpoint characters in the same story. Therefore, this analysis will first focus on what happened in different timelines. Analyze the movements of characters from different perspectives separately. Clarify the entire story's narrative. At the end of the Saraksa and people, Mrs. Sicily represents the official of Syracuse. Granted authorization to waste a new city, to establish a new city without any family. The story of the Revealer-S takes place a year later. You will see under more modern management. It presents a scene of vibrant life with all things thriving. Government institutions and legal authorities were established. The convenience of transportation has driven the rapid development of the economy on the Saraksa. It is the mayor who will soon take office in New Volshini. Conviction also became the supervisor of the legal system to showcase the results of reforms and gain public support. Night Watch and Sinister plan to restart the carnival. Translated from the days when they masked themselves, unkilled each other, transform into a grand celebration of the new life. A new festival to develop tourism and enhance urban identity. Their ideas are good, but it seems a bit too hasty. despite the family's power no longer being able to exist openly. But many families sought greater benefits. Even if it means changing their appearance, they want to open a company, make large profits through capitalist methods. The efficiency of extortion is much higher than that of protection. Lapland Father Alberto Salazio family. The program for whitewash up the industrial sector of the family was initiated immediately after Bernardo's death. Also united under the banner of Dimitri, hoped to revitalize the family by integrating into New Wolse, the Venice family mentioned in the personal comic of Lapland. It relies on the rapid entry into New Volscini through the aerospace industry. The current head of the Venice family, Antonio, regarding the smuggling activities carried out by the truck drivers union, even harbored disloyal thoughts towards the New Wolse city government. Meanwhile, this round of the Wolf King's game is nearing its end. The last surviving healer, Zaro's dental therapist Bernardo, devoted himself to the ideal, and Ziros himself became a dog of Lapland. We had killed the teacher who served as the Fang. Currently under the influence of Caesar, the master of the slave wolves, who fully pursue and eliminate the remaining human. As his I raised her Fanny Anna as a daughter. It's just that it's raised in a more authentic way. Became the elder sister of the tribe. The former family assassin Umberto concealed his tracks, operating the new Wolfsen in Suit Shop du Montano, raising the only grandson, Lucino. The regicide struggled in vain to avenge, ultimately rescued by the truck drivers union, become a member of the truck drivers union. At this moment when it could all happen, because of different motives, they returned to New Olos, and during winter had already distanced himself from the Venetian family he once belonged to, under the persuasion of the wolf uncover the truth behind the assassination of Belladonna and returned to New Olos. On one side, protecting VI Kus Ental Care. Lapland learned about the news of the New Olos INI Carnival. Automatically picked up the taxi Tongguan left behind after the gang shootout. Go to New Wolsian to become a taxi driver. Realized that the situation is rapidly changing. Also, they had prepared their own performance. With an invitation letter, Texas was invited over from the gateway. Tooth extraction and the Lord of Wolves. The actors are all in place. The story of the curtain raisers thus begins. Jump straight into the highly anticipated scene. Narrative: Dimitri met with the night watcher. The result was encountering a big truck collision on the way, almost sent to another world on the spot. This car accident was a complete coincidence. Rinjo has already recognized the Tooth Fairy, planned to solve other dental issues physically. Complete VA Ku's commission. The men fought with Red and Diana on the street. In the middle of their battle, they accidentally popped the tire of a car that was spying on them. Accident. The driver on the truck, Summer. It is the second direct cause of the car accident. He was caught by the Venetian family, forced to carry the trucking union president Irena, who was on the side of the prohibited items for the family's secret. However, the regicide discovered them that night. The assassin was attracted by the red on the street, failed to timely remind the absence mate Summer. After the accident, they went straight to find Red for revenge. The result is that Summer fears the matter will come to light. Directly chose the fleeing culprit, hide the truck at New Wolfsini port, made the entire event a murder case. And when Umberto's grandson Lucilio happened to pass by, Gambino and Capone, who were just affiliated with the Venetian family, discovered because the cargo on the truck that day was not ordinary contraband. But the faction of Antonio from the Venetian family intends to launch a rebellion to prevent the leak of a major incident that could lead to someone losing their head. Only Lucino could be tied up by the Venetian family for dealing with matters. At that moment, witnessing the car accident were there is also Dimitri in the street-side coffee shop and Lapland in the distant taxi. Lapland, which has a panoramic view of the situation, but he was the first to call the police. It seems she had anticipated the sudden publicization of the contradictions within the city, like taking a taxi. Increase the engine power and press down on the gas pedal. Zaro seems to have also been inspired by Lapland. Turned around and reported to Caesar that VAG had sheltered him while he was accelerated the outbreak of internal contradictions within the Then comes the second phase of the story. Describes the entire bed play throughout the night. The continuous escalation of conflicts in various parts of New VOL. Elena appeared in court as a landmark event. The carnival is about to take place. The deputy mayor is about to take office. But the mayor himself suddenly encountered a car accident. In the complex web of family factions, the new conflict between the old and the new, to say that there is nothing sinister or mysterious among them. The citizens themselves probably don't believe it. Convict first tested a place very close to the crime scene, Dimitri. After that, he suspected the sudden return of Rin to Syracuse, but none of them had concrete evidence. Meanwhile, the family's forces are also playing their own cards. The head of the Venice family, Old Venice, has returned to Nuvio El Shanai. He first politely declined Alberto's advances and invited Antonio along with him to the winter solstice. His series of coincidences let the family, which already has a grudge against each other, become even more at odds with the official. Was not pleased with the recognition of Antonio. She did not want to return to family politics. Whether it was Antonio's deliberate outreach, still the affection of Old Venice. None of them could move her. Just as the old man Bede came to rescue Lucino, who had been taken by Gambino into the Venice family and negotiate with Old Venice. At this moment, Rindong only cared about the truth of how his daughter was by the desire of Umberto to protect his family. Also to fulfill the commission from Viegu, she personally saved Umberto and Lucino. And finally, he returned the coat of arms of the Venice family. And during winter refuses to cooperate. Alberto and Dimitri were bystanders. Plus, the Old Venice suddenly returned. The weapons hidden on the truck are still likely to be exposed. This series of changes greatly stimulated Antonio. Let him accelerate the implementation of his insane plan for seizing power. The president of the Truckers' Union, Irene, learned about his predicament from Summer and the conspiracy of the Venice family. These truck drivers were bought by the family. Undoubtedly constitutes a betrayal of the official government. Irene, realizing she had no way out due to her inability to defend herself, Irene abandoned the idea of protecting Summer and the truck drivers' union through regular legal Alberto, means, who had previously courted him. The two went to the place where the truck was hidden in New Wolf, Sini Harbor, but they found that the hiding place of the truck was already on fire, and they were also detained by the police who rushed to the scene. This fire was actually set by the regicide. She protected the truck drivers' union, which she regarded as her family. Avoid Sawmill being implicated, had no choice but to resort to this desperate measure. Irene, however, faced legal charges due to this fire. All factions also experienced a major port fire during this sensitive time. The suspicion between them kept escalating. Summer was protecting Irene, also out of regret for their own momentary foolishness. The final appeal of the family faction. I hope to help Irene atone. The Venetian family, however, murdered Summerell to cover up the crime. This creates a situation where there is no proof of death. And at this moment, Texas, although invited by Lapland, he returned to New Wolsey. But here, her individual combat power is of no help, can only assist in monitoring Lapland. But instead, they were led by the latter in searching for the truth of the event. Lapland seems to have no opinion on the New Wolfsen city government. In the courtroom, the two witnessed a scene of farce together. Alberto and Antonio, Chimafaya the text translates to, they even competed to act as trying to bring Irene, who knows about the identity of a good citizen of the Venetian family, to his own camp. There is nothing they can do about the new laws in Volos INI. After the trial ended, Irene is still being pursued by the gang leader, with the timely support of the regicide S. Only after the pain had subsided to the truck drivers' union. But there is a possibility of collusion between the truck drivers' union and the mafia. Successfully raised the blood pressure of Urine Sin. At the car accident that occurred while on night duty in the fire, she had no doubt that there was a conspiracy group inside the New Wolsey. The plan is to send the city government to heaven during the carnival. Maybe it's time to start unlocking the paranoia system. But the convict is no longer the same person he once was. Invisible support from Bernardo's background Lavinia. He still hopes to resolve the issue through legal means, even in the most extreme cases, follow in a manner that upholds the law. The tension in New Volos INI has been escalating. Convicted of murder, Alberto was arrested by the police at the instigation and let Dimitri temporarily take over the Salusio family business. Antonio, this bird startled by arrows, also chose to launch a family coup, softly confining Old Venice. Intended to gather everyone and launch a riot together. After Irene assessed the situation, decided to lead all members of the truck drivers' union to find Hall Sin. Plan to convince her to use violent means. Physical elimination of family members. This is how we can protect the order of the truck drivers. Union and New Volos INI. Aren't you also realized who the murderer of Ringland was? And Umberto was prepared to face his destiny with courage. Carnival finally opened. All factions are also eagerly awaiting. Perhaps it could be detonated by this firecracker. It was just a simple gunshot. Father Aguinair has already infiltrated the crowd at the festival. He is equivalent to the ambassador of the Sicilian woman. Examine the development of New Volos I act at the necessary moment to stabilize the situation. The violent members of the Venetian family have already prepared to attack the court. But they encountered a group of truck drivers waiting in formation. Although Irene proposed sending the family factions one by one to heaven with police, did not receive the recognition of the guilty. But the truck drivers' union still protects the court behind it. Because they are clear, this is the last chance for a new life. The regicide was also constantly on guard against Irene's outrageous actions. She did not want to see the second Tallulah appear beside her. The clan's troublemaker has now encountered a small problem. It's time for a big event. The weapons Antonio agreed on are still not here, just as the two sides were about to meet. Lapland, however, was dressed in a magnificent landing ship. They breached the scene. The weapons originally intended for the gang, elegantly thrown in the center of the field. And Gavin Ho and Che Pen, the two generals long ago I was convinced by Lapland. They controlled the land ships for Lapland. Another one was prepared to command the riot. Brought before Rin, who desired vengeance for her daughter. The clown Antonio was completely unable to resist. Killed in one hit by Rin. The one who finished him off. It was the former elder, Carl, who he personally demoted. He thought he had imprisoned. Red finally found the one who met his death calmly, Umberto. B2's guidance made Reed think about the meaning of the Wolf King game. She did not execute on Bet2, but let him die peacefully. The sound of Antonio's death did not trigger a conflict between the two parties. Family members who lost command. I don't want to die for unrealistic riots. The truck drivers are referring to these families that have integrated into the new city-seated hatred between them. After all, the order under violent rule. It is something that everyone subconsciously rejects. Now that we have the weapons in hand, both sides actually dare not act rashly. Otherwise, they will become the sinners of New VOL Shanai's history. And a scene of absurdity appeared. Until the crowd of revelers reaches the courthouse, everyone had to wear masks and line the streets to welcome them. Whether they are willing now or not, they have all become part of the carnival. Lapland and Texas in the crowd cheers. Dance one last time for the new Wolsai. Their obsession will also dissipate. Amanotas, who had recovered from his injuries together with returned to his loyal new Wolsai. And the mayor's inauguration speech was carried out as originally planned. This document will be submitted together with the new Urban Management Act of the Ministry of Justice. The entire political landscape of Syracuse. See the juniors playing around. They solved the problem anyway. The situation in New VOL Shanai eventually stabilized. Agora also left contentedly. Irene and Texas also made their choices. Contribute your strength to the management institution of New VOL Shanai. Previously, when Johanna was recovering, also returned to Syracuse to reunite with Texas. Old Ven has cleaned Antonio's subordinate. All illegal operations were rapidly cut out. Successfully left away for the Venice family. Ingrid will never return again. The new VOL Gurn of civilization cannot accommodate another family assassin. Therefore, her choice was to go to Rhode Island to take care of her daughter. This round of the Wolf King game has also come to an end. Caesar obtained the victory that belonged to the slave. Red was also cruelly abandoned by him. It was the crown sovereign who had been repeatedly beaten by Red who saved her. The regicide himself also returned to Rhode Island with Reed to seek Salzy's help. The Wolf Lords were emptied by Lapland and GIROS. Everyone agreed that it was their right to observe the human power more interesting together than the previous Wolfmaster game, so the collective followed Lapland's call. Facing the upcoming threat alongside other Beastmasters, the future of New VOL Shanai in this storm of irony and drama. Finally, the curtain was raised on his own story. The story of the Unveilers ends here. At first glance, the plot of the reveal we can easily find. This plot continues the collective portrayal since Long Night Near El. A large number of characters with different stances engaged in intense descriptions of the same event from different perspectives makes the entire story's development and ending more unexpected, but different from all the previous crowd dramas. All characters in the Revelator-S, it seems that none of them have truly achieved their goals. The society of Syracuse has progressed forward, but this progress is filled with the awkwardness of struggling in the mud. If we feel that the characters merely had an exciting and thrilling carnival, that is indeed far from the main theme of the story. How to enter the crowd of the Revealer-S. It must be clarified first. What are the positions and stances of the characters in the plot of The Revelator-S? Repeatedly mention these two core propositions. One is to explore the relationship between how does the new order opposing unify with the old order. It can be summarized as civilization and desolation or civilization and barbarism. Civilization and wilderness issue involves the methods used by the characters. One civilization resolves issues through legal and negotiation means. Act according to the established rules framework. The new government of Volos INI is one of them. Wherever there is desolation, they worship violence and the survival rules in their eyes are just the confirmation of violent acquisition. The game of the Wolf King is a representative among them. The second is the irony of lofty ideals and instinctual always inseparable from the human body. Can be summarized as man and beast share the same path. The issue of coexisting with beasts and humans. The text translates to, it involves the principles of how the characters handle matters. Look ahead. They sacrifice for others. The typical example is Umberto's noble behavior and penance. The traits of beasts make the characters respond to their instincts. Even worse, they did everything among evil. Them, of course, are the beasts like Antonio and Caesar. But there exists a revolving door with subtle conditions. Even just different appearances shown in different scenarios. In The Revelator-S, their behavior and stance can help us understand these two propositions more deeply. At the center of both stages simultaneously, it is also the center of the plot narrative. She is not bound by Fansuo de Yishi. In the eyes of others, he appeared mad, always maintaining composure. She promoted Syracuse's progress in multiple ways. Could also not forget to look for old friends. The dog father at the pit house. Lapland is the least human-like of all. The beast that resembles nothing. The most desolate civilization. Only by clarifying her position in these two propositions, we can only truly understand the Revelator-S. We will be on two coordinate axes. Draw a 3x3 grid for the characters in the two major issues. Gradually break down and reveal the character positions of the unveilers along how did it illustrate civilization and desolation? How to intricately arrange the splendid narrative and precise logic within it, following the core of the AR Knight's plot, which revolves the one around we can understand most directly. And the leaders of New VOL I, on the stage playing as a civilized person. Translate the text into English. They are a group of people who will always be present in the arc storyline for a better future for Syracuse. They do not spare any effort. Worthy of our respect. But the irony of the Revelator-S did not bypass them for this reason. The new Urban Management Act is difficult to truly eliminate the foundation because of the interests. The people of Syracuse are still forming an alliance. The Truckers' Union, which nearly became a gang of violent individuals in the same night, is a good new order. Also had its own human nature. He did this to show his great sense of public service. Also deliberately pushed away the Bologna family, which was willing to join the new order, and always willing to cooperate and help Dimitri. The establishment of the new order was not as easy as everyone imagined. Even the shadows of the family's old order can be seen everywhere. This irony runs throughout the entire plot. Until the end, New Vols HYN still has the family. They just won't be clueless like Antonio anymore. Despite the police and officials also engaging in tyranny even become some kind of new family. Syracuse has indeed been changed. Freedom from fear. Syracuse will no longer be just an empty phrase. On the opposite side of the idealist, the wasteland person would observe coldly, because their experiences tell them civilization has its own boundaries. Violence is the underlying logic of society. In the story, choose to gather truck drivers to oppose the family with Irene. And the Duchess of Sicily, who maintains order through violence, won't truly become the enemy of idealistic progressive forces. But their irony lies in too much or too little can spoil the pursuit of ideals. Elena initially just wanted to protect her truck driver friends. In the end, it almost turned the truckers' union into a family, transformed the protest action into part of a citywide riot. Mrs. Sicily established order and harmony, but the oppression of civilians by the gangs has never stopped. Substantial reforms are also fundamentally unfeasible. Even with the most profound grievances and reluctance, achieving the ideal also requires means that transcend short-term violence. Because violence will ultimately perish with the weakening of individual strength. Only a change in mindset, ability can bring about lasting change. Those who struggle between civilization and wilderness. It often hovers between the misalignment of means and ends. Texa seems to have become Lapland's sidekick throughout the entire plot. The last of the decks as a new VO Elshin, I indeed has nowhere to display itself in the civilized jungle. The only way is to become a partner of the new government, able to participate in the reforms of New Vol's HYN. The regicide as the spiritual mentor in the plot second only to Lapland, continuously guided the Summer Irene and Reid characters. The spirit cannot be said to be lowly. Willpower cannot be said to be lacking. But she did indeed arrive at a battlefield that was not hers. The luckiest place for a misfortune-prone it's the person she needs to work hard to save. They indeed need her help. And her relentless efforts. It also lead the story to a good ending. New Wolf Simi is a character sandwiched between all our members of families caught between the old and new orders. They are not good at being human. But it's also not good to go back to being a violent gang. Can also let us glimpse the theme of the plot expression. During Winter End, the Venetian family of Old Venice. Closer to our traditional impression of a family, in the context of organized crime, formed the foundation of the Venetian family. This is actually a rather barren characteristic. No need for so much hierarchy and bloodline nonsense. Like a true pack, expanding and hunting. But in human society, they also inevitably encounter the complications brought about by social relationships. Old Venice will ultimately face betrayal brought about by the shift in power dynamics. People who make a living through violence have distanced themselves from it. People who do not want to manipulate power. But it requires raising the butcher's knife for cleaning. Dimitri's Bell on family. In Bernardo and Nightwatcher, these two pillars of the family have ended. There are still quite a few followers. This at least proves. The life of the family is not just about interests and power. It is also a detour of his own beliefs. The ideal of the young master's Nightwatch. Probably also part of it. However, such an ideal, in a sensitive situation, unable to be accommodated by New will say. Civilization is ultimately just a specific framework. There are always some people who have to be reluctantly excluded. Mitri can only struggle to squeeze into the New Wolf Cine game. Just like Umberto had to use all his strength to escape the Wolf Lord's game. Taylor Shop di Montano. It is the source of dignity for the high-ranking officials. It was also a hiding spot for assassins. The disguise of the Wolf Lord's But how many people can be at the moment of their death, still doing the job that I've been doing my whole life? If the paths of civilization and desolation ultimately leave only dignity, we at least deserve our own dignity. Owen Beart's story tells us, whether it's the rules of civilization or the rules of the wilderness, the more it loses the warmth of humanity. But the true opposite of the new WOL not a family of restless spirits and violence. It's not something that comes naturally with the rules framework, but it is hidden in the instincts of man. Translate into English, the concept of bestiality in the initial stages of human society's operation. Violence and power are closely linked. The power game of the Wolf Lord thus became a bloody fight. Society spoke of rules and order. However, those people with beastly hearts and human faces at this moment, what is being sought is not violence, but it is the power that acts with impunity. So we can also see that. The most beastly among the Wolf Lords is Caesar, who plays with power and there was also Zaro, who almost won a game of Mahjong with the Bernardo. Most beastly in the family. Also, Antonio is passionate about manipulating and controlling Alberto, others. Who is not at all hesitant to deceive others, can be included in this group as well. Compared to truly desolate beasts. Also the main target of Syracuse's plot. The significance of Antonio's existence has been denied by others. Therefore, there is an unconscious desire for power over others, even when the contradiction had not yet escalated. Can't stand the new rules of New Volo's INI, so they took action. The last blood flowed on the ground. It also became a big fork. Actually, the new and old order meant nothing to him. They were merely tools to satisfy personal power desires. He said he was like Jackson. That's a bit insulting to the comedic effect of Jackson, isn't it? Evildoers will be ground down by other evildoers. Zhen Hong unlucky but well to the deceiver will always deceive. Probably something that can tell us this lesson. The Beast of Desolation is actually quite harmless. She follows a lifestyle of instinct, impulsive killing method. All of them are lies woven by the Wolf Lord Caesar. After being enlightened by Umbet and the monarch, her growth is also within reason. After having my own purpose for survival, she's probably the only true human. Although I also wish that I wouldn't have to worry about those purposes, and this way might make you happier. But it really does need some meaning. There are still some interesting characters. For example, Gambino and Papon, the two lieutenants. It can be said that we have accompanied the arc's storyline and they always honestly follow their desires. A mind full of thoughts about Sicilian's reputation. A person who is always thinking about how to make money and climb can exploit the loopholes in the new Wilsai system. Can also turn on a dime against the Venetian family. Not human in appearance, but it's even less about having no distracting thought. At a critical moment, Chen showed some human-like behavior. Although they are by no means kind-hearted people, they will tirelessly chase their next prey forever. Would make me, a civilized person, feel envious. The remaining VAG and as his AI of the Wolf Lord's faction. As a wolf master who cultivates human-like qualities, there are also many vivid descriptions turned into it healing this seemingly desolate game. It will inevitably bear the marks of human societal rules. And ESE raises Iana like a daughter. The relationship between VAG and Umberto, even like close friends and relatives in human society, but have the Beast Masters transcended their humanity? I personally wouldn't think so. The way Ashes raises Anne, and the way Wango empathizes with Wubet, still following the instincts of a beast. Zaro's fan is the most human-like. It's no wonder it was the first one to become a dog in Lapland. The woes and hesitations of the Wolf Lord, the scene of our human struggle between civilization and wilderness, possesses similar characteristics. Focus on describing this conflict. It's probably a small reminder in the plot design. Only possesses laws that transcend the right to weigh the rules of civilization. No matter what kind of good or evil, beauty or ugliness, it is already an inseparable part of the concept of humanity. The Wolf Lords follow Lapland. The reason why human society seems more fun. We follow the order of switching perspectives as seen by the revealer through the mutual reflections of all 8 positions. Finally, we've reached the character who is both the most difficult and easiest to understand in the entire in front of Lord of the Revelry, Lapland. Why is Lapland always at the center of the stage? Shouldn't the Dao be the character that best represents desolation? Isn't she the madman, whom everyone in HR believes was born this way? Evelyn is the anti-hero who tests human nature like a clown. Even her own operator name contains desolation. We cannot deny that. Lapland from start to finish, regarding one's purpose and means. Starting from the decision to drive a taxi into the city, she is engaged in her own strategic planning. The origins of the Lapland taxi are not simple. A batch of family members first took advantage of the carnival, their own pass, planned to make a living in New Wolfsen by taking taxis, but they ended up fighting each other halfway through. It is enough to prove several things. Modern management model of New Volos certainly provides motivation for reform within legal frameworks, but it is also easy to exploit. People even start disputes over significant material interests, just when there are still doubts about such reforms. New VOL Gurnai has also restored the carnival, which once served as a symbol of violence. I hope it becomes a business card symbolizing new life. How many factions might be stirred up by this reckless probe? My own friends, do you really understand what you're playing with? As a young advanced individual from Syracuse who participated in the Lapland cannot be unaware of these risks. And her next move, it is also a grass snake. Using the identity of a taxi driver, Lapland conducted a series of social surveys and psychological counseling before the carnival. From what she learned about the truck driver's hiding spot, Gambino and Capone, as seen from Irene's actions even at the court door, she has already sorted out those convoluted things from New Volos. Everything has been thoroughly checked. Antonio's riot plan might have been transparent to her. She also specifically brought Texas over from the gateway. It's difficult to say it wasn't for finding more helpers for the night watch. Lapland is almost overrun by demons, she said to Texas. Now it can really be thrown back at her like a boomerang. Lapland, use Arakusacrude are an idealist through and through. No matter how much she believed Syracuse was an inescapable quagmire, she also always hoped that someone could escape this quagmire. But the rationality and idealism of Lapland, it would only go this far. She dialed the emergency number for a nighttime but only went with the flow in the tense situation of New Volos INI. Even if you know all this information. But Lapland, whether it's towards Texas or the official stance, none of them have revealed any information. The last method of distributing weapons to both sides involved driving less likely to come from a purely benevolent desire for New Vols to understand her mindset. Compare with human nature is meaningless. Let's talk about the way she was introduced in the script. As a taxi driver in New VOL Shina, the identity of Lapland, obviously paying homage to the movie Taxi Driver. A Vietnam veteran suppresses loneliness in a chaotic society, failed to assassinate the presidential candidate. switched and killed the old duck and the guest. Such an erotic gunman out of place in the modern metropolis. Last shaped into a hero by societal opinion, and her behavior of entering the venue in a hovercraft and like in Batman The Dark Knight Rises. The clown simultaneously handed the detonator to the ships that carried to representatives of the segment where they might mutually destroy themselves to preserve their own existence. The new Olos I and the Gotham citizens also made the same choice, that is retaining the last shred of humanity and dignity. And Mace movies. The taxi driver and the clown both have strong anti-seal personalities. Their antisocial behavior not due to a perverted nature or personal evil, but it stems from the oppression and dilemmas imposed on them by modern society. Compared to the majority of ordinary people who choose to endure and live a good life, these two antagonists choose to discard the mask of civilization. Show the cancer of modern society through a satirical approach to social governance. Both directors express their criticism of modern civilization through these films. We can also find the shadow of character development from Lapland. Lapland is just like them, all because of the oppression from society. Shaped a deep-seated hatred for Syracuse, until it devolved into contempt and distrust of all rule frameworks. Her first action upon reporting for work, it was intentionally using both himself and his weapon to occupy an entire This is like when she brought her weapons into the office on her own, even before she became a passenger. To test the doctor's attitude towards those who overstep rules, even though she was most of the time. All of them are so kind and well-behaved. Like this is when you should laugh but don't. When the rebellious personality is not sad. All of these have shaped Lapland's magnificent performance desires in our eyes. This stark contrast also became part of her personal charm. But has Lapland really reached the point of doing as one pleases without going beyond bounds? There is an anchor that allows us to perceive the rare tangle of Lapland. That's Texas. Lapland in Texas. Similarly, they suffer the erosion of their personalities by family politics. However, the Texan from Columbia made a decisive choice. She made a deal with the Wolf Lord. Again, completely abandoning his father and the entire family. It seems to have welcomed the new life without any reluctance. The reason for Lapland's attachment to Texas. It was her choice of Texas. Even in the SYRACU say, if not for LUBI's cry of defiance, Dakota will only help Aro complete the commission, just left without even looking back. Look back at Lapland's seemingly unconcerned attitude towards Syracuse. Actually, when the opportunity arises, just driving a taxi every day to do new life social research. Who cares the most about Syracuse? Who is the soul fragment still trapped in the rainy season of Syracuse? The result is obvious. Everyone hopes to burn away what is holding them captive. But how many dare to say, check what's left with Gracie I Chai. Lapland has always cared about Texas. Somehow, someone managed to escape from this quagmire of Syracuse so easily towards the new Woolside. It is also not just a result of insight into the weaknesses of civilization because she had already realized desire to break the mask on to escape Xerox's grip. She has become yet another mask of her own. Even without such worries. The Carnival Master was the one who designed the entire carnival. He hopes to uncover the mask of Texas. Even more so, I hope to reveal my Syracuse own mask. Can never escape its inherent flaws. Lapland, on the other hand, would get an easy release. Texas and New Volos I both told her, inevitably wearing a mask. Perhaps it would make someone sigh. Even resorting to inhumane acts. Degenerate into beasts in human clothing, wanting to reconcile. It also only requires facing one thing repeatedly told in the mask we wear. Absolutely not in a more refined or beautiful manner. It's actually quite ordinary. Like Texas choosing to escape in a mediocre way. Texas actions from start to finish. It's just about walking the talk and looking forward. New Ensign. It's even stranger inside the mud pit. Struggle and satire. Lacking the nobility and freedom that should be in life. But it was just such a group of people, still pushing New Wolfsend towards its own tomorrow. In the mud pit of Syracuse, he took a step forward with his feet firmly only planted. By portraying the irony and anguish of the new VOL Shinai people in vivid detail. We will be like Lapland, realizing all the irony and conflict. Actually, they're not that important. Our soul imprisoned in a rainy season. Obsession with Texas. That's all for now. Irrationality and madness. Only then did they truly obtain complete freedom. Understood this point. The turning point for Lapland's anomaly. And take all the wolf lords from Syracuse. It is the natural result of Lapland reconciling with its own rebellion. The rules of civilization have their place. The desolate laws also have things they can control. Even rebellion and madness are just masks. Born in the modern, highly developed society, who doesn't need to wear a few masks of hypocrisy? Who wouldn't hate that two-faced hypocrite? After peeling off layer after layer of masks that had fused with the so-called nature of humans, is there a more hollow impulse of destruction hidden? More brutal and violent, breaking free from constraint? The answer might be affirmative. But what does it matter? The eternal wheel of carnival dances sees there is nothing that is eternal and sacred. Nothing is beyond defilement. This is what social development and idealism look like when put into practice. It is also a more accurate description of modern society. Verdict, TED trial. Wasteland Lapland, unconsciously playing a role in the plot. It was precisely such a driving force for development. It dominates our inclination towards humanity or beast. Choose the means of civilization or desolation. This is not an absolute neutrality. It's not about muddying the water. But neither good nor evil does not change according to human will. There is no sin of serving at night. The demands of the Irene Ness have also coalesced. No Texas and Lapland. Luke Hillis and the mechanics will also walk towards their own tomorrow. This is the entire plot of Syracuse. Do humans and beasts have other propositions? The ultimate answer to convey. It will all be a tangible representation of people's lives and historically depicted their trajectory. We must uphold the human descent. It is also important to recognize that the rules of civilization always have their own limitations. But whether one wishes to be a noble like Holofson's Nightwalker, Gambino Capon, such a colorful and lively mortal, still a lone wolf like Lapland. We all do not worry about the truth or falsehood. Only remain clear about your own nest, engaging in the revelry. The analysis of this chapter of the Revelator Rests has come to at the end of the video. After discussing all the narrative intentions and story, we can finally properly discuss the question raised at the beginning. The Revealer S brought the idealistic story of Nier L since the long night to a conclusion. It is the most successful chapter of the idealistic story of tomorrow's Even in the most difficult moments, he carried the banner of the arc storyline. After each half-yearly plot, all are centered around idealism. All also involve political confrontations at the societal level. Idealism breaks through layer upon layer of constraints in the real world. In a complex collective, reaching one's own endpoint was the source of our joy in reading these stories. But such romance also has its own limit of expression. Idealism ultimately needs to be put into practice, and the relentless pressure of reality. Similarly, let us find it difficult to regain the sincere heart that could immerse itself in grand stories. The story of idealism begins with the grand epic of Nier L at dawn, transformed into the reality of the Syraxi people, endured the romance and narrative twist of Cretan L's Golden, finally among the Revealers. But suddenly he rolled into the mud pit of Syracuse. Idealism has all become an object of irony. Facing the scene where K.A.P.N exploits loopholes in the citizen point system, it is difficult for us not to emit an awkward but honest smile. This is the reality that exists everywhere in modern society. It seemed to promise human rights and freedom, but you'll have to come and get it yourself. Each protagonist's role. All of them have their own helplessness and even their every demand. None of them were fully realized. In such a realistic script, their different choices, still able to bring different plots and endings. Honesty in facing one's humanity in beast lines. Not only is it about establishing, it's more important to practice one's own ideals. Isn't this also a science fiction story? After the long night, Nier L, we grew up together with Hyper-G or YPH for more than 2 years. When talking about idealism, the most diverse would be the mixed bag mentioned in Meeting Joy, right? The grandeur of idealism. It is already difficult to leave a mark in a realistic story. Even if we write out other bridge segments, could it be more shocking than Actor Teresa and Director? On the contrary, it is the rules of idealism. Like the Festival of Carnival, which is prominently featured among the revelers. In the humanities, there are two completely opposite interpretations. One faction believes it has diluted class, relieved social pressure. The other faction, however, believes it looks like a moment of extreme rebellion and equality. Only during holidays can equality be achieved. As usual, things should be the same. How can we view idealism now? Ordinary people might just laugh awkwardly and move on. The premise of the writers and designers of the Revealer just push all the idealistic stories from before into the deepest mud. Handed the ideal of dazzling brilliance. It showcased its blood-soaked state in the fortuitous circumstances. Even idealism is in this sorry state. but it's still shown in the ruins. The writing style and character plot arrangements of the reveal-ers have a show-off component. Many plot twists and meanings are difficult to understand. This video ends here. It's probably just a matter of taking everyone on a tour. Everyone must have figured out by now that I found what I wanted. The moment of painting a grand idealistic drama with bright eyes has ended, but we fight for our ideals, the drama struggling through the mud. The day of bidding farewell to the old and welcoming the new has passed. Let's open the curtain of a new life together with the revelers. Let's also dance in this masquerade ball of modern life. Request to like and follow. Thank you all for watching.
聊到揭幕者们这段剧情，哪怕已经过了一整个冬天，
Even though it has already been a whole winter,
大家应该也能回忆起许多名场面。
everyone should also be able to recall any famous scenes.
4夜车祸床戏打满全场，
Nighttime car accident, bed play, filled the entire scene.
车祸现场旁边聚集了一大半叫得出名字的干员。
A large number of named operators have gathered.
拉普兰德与德克萨斯，
Lapland in Texas.
这对蕴含了无数恩怨情仇的老朋友，
This pair of old friends harboring countless enmities and affections
为徐拉古的未来共舞一曲，
dance a song for the future of Syracuse.
又分道扬镳，为彼此献上最终的和解。
And they parted ways, each offering their final reconciliation.
忍冬对安东尼奥避开心脏的一刀，
Enduring winter dodged Antonio's attack aimed at his heart.
令安东尼奥的人头被他自己贬黜的无名小卒拿刀，
Let the head of Antonio be taken by his own lowly servant.
鲜血流淌成一个大大的叉。
Blood flowed into a large cross.
在拉普兰德投放武器挑战人性时，
In Lapland, when weapons challenge humanity,
彼此剑拔弩张的卡车司机与家族成员，
truck drivers who are at odds with each other and family members.
却在游行队伍到来时鬼使神差的夹道欢迎。
However, when the parade procession arrived, they inexplicably lined up to welcome them.
柳德米拉倒霉至极，却仍行于正道。
Ludmila is extremely unlucky but still walks the path of righteousness.
尽管他被红带来的梦魇反复折磨，
Despite being repeatedly tormented by the nightmares brought on by Reed,
最后依然拯救了被外婆抛弃的红。
in the end, she still saved the red one who was abandoned by her grandmother.
本来真没违反啥法律的阿尔贝托，
Alberto didn't actually violate any laws.
却在多方推动与阴差阳错之间，
However, amidst the various pushes and Schoenstein-Senel errors,
丢光家族产业，坐穿大牢。
the White West family's industry went bankrupt.
此事在新年寄来的葡萄酒里亦有记载。
This matter is also recorded in the wine sent in the New Year's greetings.
尽管这些场景都足够让人印象深刻，
Despite these scenes being impressive enough,
但我最受触动的情节，
but the scene that touched me most,
却是在各方势力为自身利益诉求捉对纠缠。
however, it was amidst the various factions vying for their own interests.
天真的第一目击者卢奇诺被打晕带走时，
When the naive first witness, Lucino, was knocked out and taken away.
是众人印象中最混沌、最荒芜的拉普兰德。
Lapland, as perceived by everyone, is the most chaotic and desolate.
第一个拨打了救下莱昂图索的报警电话，
The first one dialed the emergency call that rescued Leno Tellez.
再想到拉普兰德当出租车司机的时候，
Thinking back to when I was a taxi driver in Lapland,
是多么乐于为他人排忧解难、抚慰心灵。
how much they enjoy alleviating others' worries and comforting their hearts.
我就不禁去想，
I couldn't help but think,
这是否意味着，
does this mean?
在新沃尔西尼复杂的利益博弈中，
In the complex game of interests in New Violshinai,
除去卢奇诺这样连博弈都没进入的普通人，
excluding ordinary people like Lucino who didn't even enter the Bobby,
其实是随心所欲而不逾矩的拉普兰德，
actually it's Lapland being as whimsical as it wants without breaking any rules.
反而最遵守我们认为的文明基本原则。
Instead, the one who most adheres to what we consider the fundamental principles of civilization.
珍惜他人的生命，为他人伸出援手，
Value others' lives and extend a helping hand.
这种反粉的辛辣入骨，
This sarcastic sharpness pierces the bone.
以及多重立场交织间，
And amidst the interweaving of multiple perspectives,
出乎意料却又合乎情理的角色塑造，
unexpected yet reasonable character development,
正蕴含着揭幕者们剧情最为独特的魅力。
holds the most unique charm of the Revealer-esque storyline.
Hello， 大家好，这里是杨岩同学。
Hello everyone, this is Yang Yan.
这期视频让我们回顾解读
Let's review the interpretation.
去年11月更新的半周年剧情《揭幕者们》。
The half-year anniversary plot reveal arrests from the update in November last year.
它承接了2年前叙拉古人剧情末尾，
It carried on from the end of the people of Saraksa 2 years ago.
引出了新沃尔西尼建设，补全了与德克萨斯并立的拉普兰德一格形象，
Completed the distinct image of Lapland alongside Texas.
以及林兰母亲与弑君者在此前剧情中的伏笔。
And the foreshadowing of the regicide by Belladonna's mother in the previous plot.
同时，叙拉古人中对文明与野蛮的反思，
At the same time, the SYRACU Sands reflects on civilization and barbarism.
对理想主义与具体实践这一命题的探讨，
Discussion on the proposition of idealism versus concrete practice.
在揭幕者们当中以近乎炫技的方式，
In the Revelatores, they perform almost show ILY.
得到了进一步的拓展和延伸。
Received further expansion and extension.
这部分拓展延伸，
This part extends and expands.
并不是野蛮在走向文明之后，
It is not that barbarism progresses towards civilization.
重新采纳野蛮的部分长处，
Re-adopt the strengths of the barbaric elements.
不是平常理解中的辩证否定与螺旋上升，
It's not the dialectical negation and spiralous end as commonly understood,
而是展示了文明与荒芜、
but it showcased civilization and desolation.
人与兽之间的难解难分。
The indistinguishable line between humans and beasts.
在不同的历史时期与社会地位上，
In different historical periods and social statuses.
都上演着同样的暧昧纠缠，
All of them are entangled in the same ambiguous relationship.
只是时代的演进，
Just the evolution of time.
也就是发生在这些复杂的纠缠、
That is, it refers to these complex entanglements.
立场攻防的矛盾两难，
The dilemma of offense and defense.
以及角色们心口不一的回旋标志中。
And among the inconsistent responses of the characters.
那么，揭幕者们是如何做到这一点的？
How did the revealers accomplish this?
为什么又说它是长夜灵光之路的终点？
Why is it said that it is the end point of the path of Mir El in the long night?
本期视频中，就让我们来一探究竟。
Let's find out.
如果在观看过程中
If during the viewing process,
产生了什么问题或想法，
what issues or ideas have been generated?
也欢迎大家大胆在评论区或弹幕留言。
We also welcome you to leave bold comments in the comment section or bullet screen.
那么下面话不多说，
So let's get straight to it.
让我们正式开始今天的长视频。
Let's officially begin the long video for today.
Morality.
整个揭幕者们的剧情分别采用了4个视角，
The narratives of all the revealers are told from for different perspectives,
通过不同的视点人物叙述同一个故事。
told from different viewpoint characters in the same story.
因此，这次解析会先分别聚焦几段不同时间线发生了什么，
Therefore, this analysis will first focus on what happened in different timelines.
再把不同视点人物的行踪进行单独分析，
Analyze the movements of characters from different perspectives separately.
使整个故事的脉络更加清晰。
Clarify the entire story's narrative.
在叙拉古人结尾，
At the end of the Saraksa and people,
西西里夫人代表叙拉古官方，
Mrs. Sicily represents the official of Syracuse,
给了沃尔西尼新城授权，
granted authorization to Waisi New City,
去建立一个没有家族的新城市。
to establish a new city without any family.
揭幕者们的故事就发生在这1年后。
The story of the Revelatores takes place a year later.
新沃尔西尼在更为现代化的管理下，
You will see under more modern management.
呈现出一幅勃勃生机、万物锦发的景象。
It presents a scene of vibrant life with all things thriving.
政府机构与法律权威建立起来，
Government institutions and legal authorities were established.
交通的便利带动了经济的迅猛发展。
The convenience of transportation has driven the rapid development of the economy.
叙拉古人中表现活跃的四叶，
The active night-watching person on the Siraksai and people.
即是即将进位新沃尔西尼的市长。
It is the mayor who will soon take office in New Volshini.
斥罪也成为了法律系统的主管。
Conviction also became the supervisor of the legal system.
为了展现改革成果与争取民众支持，
To showcase the results of reforms and gain public support.
四叶与斥罪打算重启狂欢节，
Night Watch and Sinister plan to restart the carnival.
将他从黑帮戴面具彼此仇杀的日子，
Translated from the days when they masked themselves, unkilled each other in the gang.
转化成万众狂欢庆祝新生活，
transform into a grand celebration of the new life.
顺带发展旅游业，增进城市认同的新节日。
A new festival to develop tourism and enhance urban identity.
他们的想法很好，
Their ideas are good,
但似乎又有些过于急切。
but it seems a bit too hasty.
尽管家族势力再也无法明面生存，
Despite the family's power no longer being able to exist openly.
但好些家族为了获取更大的利益，
But many families sought greater benefits.
不惜改头换面，也要在新城开公司，
Even if it means changing their appearance, they want to open a company in the new city.
靠资本主义的方法大规模赚钱，
Make large profits through capitalist methods.
比收保护费、敲诈勒索有效率多了。
The efficiency of extortion is much higher than that of protection fees.
拉普兰德父亲阿尔贝托的萨鲁佐家族，
Lapland father Alberto Salazio family.
第一时间就启动了洗白家族产业的程序。
The program for whitewash up the industrial sector of the family was initiated immediately.
贝纳尔多死后的贝洛内家族
Bello and E family after Bernardo's death.
也团结在德米特里旗下，
Also united under the banner of Dimitri.
希望靠融入新沃尔西尼重振家族。
Hope to revitalize the family by integrating into New Wolse.
拉普兰德个人漫画中提到的威尼斯家族，
The Venice family mentioned in the personal comic of Lapland.
则是依靠载具公司产业迅速进入新沃尔西尼。
It relies on the rapid entry into New Volscini through the aerospace industry.
威尼斯家族目前管事的高层安东尼奥，
The current head of the Venice family, Antonio.
就渗透卡车司机工会搞走私勾当，
Regarding the smuggling activities carried out by the Truck Drivers Union.
甚至对新沃尔西尼市政府也常怀不臣之心。
Even harbored disloyal thoughts towards the New Wolsey city government.
同时，这一轮狼主的斗蛐蛐游戏已经接近尾声，
Meanwhile, this round of the Wolf King's game is nearing its end.
最后存活的獠牙，
The last surviving healer.
也就是游戏中的凡人蛐蛐，只剩下了3位。扎罗的獠牙贝纳尔多为理想献身，
Darrow's dental therapist Bernardo devoted himself to the ideal.
而扎罗自己也沦为了拉普兰德的狗。
And Ziros himself became a dog of Lapland.
红击杀了作为獠牙的弑君者老师，
We had killed the teacher who served as the Fang.
目前正在愤怒狼主凯撒，也就是外婆的蛊惑下，
Currently under the influence of Caesar, the master of the slave wolves who is also their grandmother.
全力追杀剩余的獠牙。
Fully pursue and eliminate the remaining healing teeth.
阿涅塞把自己的獠牙紫月当女儿养，
As his I raised her Fanny Anna as a daughter.
就是养得比较原汁原味，
It's just that it's raised in a more authentic way.
养成部落老姐了。
Became the elder sister of the tribe.
瓦古的獠牙，前家族杀手温贝托隐藏了自身踪迹，
The former family assassin Umberto concealed his tracks.
经营着新沃尔西尼的西装店德门塔诺，
Operating the new Wolfsen in Suit Shop du Montano.
抚养着唯一的孙子卢奇诺。
Raising the only grandson, Lucino.
弑君者尽力复仇无果，
The regicide struggled in vain to avenge.
最终被卡车司机工会救下，
Ultimately rescued by the Truck Drivers Union.
成为卡车司机工会的一员。
Become a member of the Truck Drivers Union.
就在这个一触即发的时刻，
At this moment when it could all happen.
限定卡车的2位主角因为不同的动机回到了新沃尔西尼。
Because of different motives, they returned to New Olos INI.
仁东本来已经远离曾经归属的威尼斯家族，
And during winter had already distanced himself from the Venetian family he once belonged to.
却在狼主瓦古劝说下，
However, under the persuasion of the wolf Lord Varg,
为寻找铃兰遭人暗算的真相，回归新沃尔西尼。
to uncover the truth behind the assassination of Belladonna and return to New Volos INI.
一边保护着瓦古的獠牙，
On one side, protecting VI Kuz dental care.
老裁缝温贝托、拉普兰德则是在听闻新沃尔西尼狂欢节的消息后，
Lapland learned about the news of the New Olos INI carnival.
自动拾取了黑帮火并后留下的出租车与通关文牒，
Automatically picked up the taxam Tongguan left behind after the gang shootout.
去新沃尔西尼当了一名出租车司机，
Go to New Wolshan to become a taxi driver.
意识到此处局势风起云涌，
Realize that the situation is rapidly changing here.
也是筹备起了自己的表演。
Also, they had prepared their own performance.
随着一封邀请函将德克萨斯从龙门邀请过来，
With an invitation letter, Texas was invited over from the gateway.
政府、家族、工会、獠牙与狼之主，
Teeth extraction and the Lord of Wolves.
演员已经全数就位，
The actors are all in place.
揭幕者们的故事也就此开幕。
The story of the curtain raisers thus begins.
故事第一阶段直接快进到了万众期待的名场面，
Jump straight into the highly anticipated scene.
一人车祸，8方围观。四叶与德米特里相约议事，
Narrative Dimitra met with the Night Watcher for a discussion.
结果在路上却遭遇大卡车撞击，
The result was encountering a big truck collision on the way,
险些被当场送去异世界。
almost sent to another world on the spot.
实际上，这场车祸只是一起完全的意外。
This car accident was a complete coincidence.
当时，忍冬已经与瓦果的獠牙温贝托相认，
Rienjo has already recognized the Tooth Fairy Beppo from Viku,
打算直接物理解决其他獠牙，
plan to solve other dental issues physically,
完成瓦果的委托。
complete Viku's commission,
于是，在街边与红和紫月两位獠牙战斗。
and then fought with Red and Diana on the street.
三人战斗中，恰巧打爆了四叶的车胎。
In the middle of their battle, they accidentally popped the tire of a car that was spying on them.
构成了车祸的第一个原因。
Was the first cause of the car accident.
卡车上的司机索莫尔，
The driver on the truck, Summer.
则是车祸的第二个直接原因。
It is the second direct cause of the car accident.
他被威尼斯家族抓住把柄，
He was caught by the Venetian family,
被迫背着斥罪一方的卡车工会会长伊雷尼，
forced to carry the trucking union president Irena, who was on the side of the Hall's guilt,
为家族秘密运送违禁物品，
to transport prohibited items for the family's secret.
却在当晚被弑君者发觉。
However, the regicide discovered them that night.
二人对峙时，弑君者被街边的红吸引了注意力，
The assassin was attracted by the red on the street,
没能及时提醒心不在焉的索莫尔。
failed to timely remind the absence-mate Summer.
撞车之后，也是一路直接找红复仇去了。
After the accident, they went straight to find Red for revenge.
结果索莫尔害怕事情败露，
The result is that Summer fears the matter will come to light,
直接选择了肇事逃逸，
directly chose the fleeing culprit.
把卡车藏到了新沃尔西尼港，
Hide the truck at New Wolf Sini Port,
使得整个事件成为了断头案。
made the entire event a murder case.
埃温贝托的孙子卢奇诺当时碰巧路过，
And when Umberto's grandson Lucilio happened to pass by,
恰好被归附威尼斯家族的甘比诺与卡彭发现。
Gambino and Capone, who were just affiliated with the Venetian family, discovered it.
由于那天卡车上的货物不是一般的走私品，
Because the cargo on the truck that day was not ordinary contraband,
而是威尼斯家族安东尼奥一派意图发动暴乱的武备。
but the faction of Antonio from the Venetian family intends to launch a rebellion with military force,
为了防止掉脑袋的大事泄密，
to prevent the leak of a major incident that could lead to someone losing their head.
二人追不到索莫尔，
The two could not catch Summer.
只得将卢奇诺绑到了威尼斯家族，用于应付交代。
Only Lucino could be tied up by the Venetian family for dealing with matters.
然而，当时目睹车祸的不仅是他们，
At that moment, witnessing the car accident were not just them.
还有街边咖啡馆中的德米特里，
There is also Dimitri in the street-side coffee shop,
以及远处出租车内的拉普兰德。
and Lapland in the distant taxi.
纵观全局的拉普兰德，并未制止众人行动，
Lapland, which has a panoramic view of the situation, did not stop the actions of everyone.
而是率先拨打了报警电话。
But he was the first to call the police.
似乎他对城内矛盾的骤然公开化早有预料。
It seems she had anticipated the sudden publicization of the contradictions within the city,
而他的选择就像开出租车一样，
like taking a taxi.
加大马力，踩下油门。
Increase the engine power and press down on the gas pedal.
而后来，扎罗似乎也是因为受到拉普兰德的启发，
Darrow seems to have also been inspired by Lapland.
转头就把瓦古包庇自己獠牙的事告密给了凯撒。
Turned around and reported to Caesar that VAG had sheltered him while he was getting his teeth treated.
加速了狼之主内部矛盾的爆发，
Accelerated the outbreak of internal contradictions within the Wolf Lords organization.
随后便是故事的第二阶段，
Then comes the second phase of the story.
描写了四叶全程床戏中，
Describes the entire bed play throughout the night.
新沃尔西尼各方冲突的不断升级，
The continuous escalation of conflicts in various parts of New Vol Shanai.
并以港口大火、
And with the port fire,
伊雷尼上法庭作为标志性事件。
Elena appeared in court as a landmark event.
狂欢节即将举办，
The carnival is about to take place.
代理市长即将转正，
The deputy mayor is about to take office.
但代理市长本人却忽然遭遇了一场车祸。
But the mayor himself suddenly encountered a car accident.
在家族势力错综复杂、
In the complex web of family factions,
新老矛盾交织的新沃尔西尼，
the new conflict between the old and the new in New Wolsey.
要说其中没有什么阴谋诡秘，
To say that there is nothing sinister or mysterious among them.
市民们自己恐怕都不相信。
The citizens themselves probably don't believe it.
撤罪先是试探了离案发现场很近的德米特里，
Convict first tested a place very close to the crime scene, Dmitri.
之后又怀疑上了突然回归叙拉古的忍冬，
After that, he suspected the sudden return of Rin to Syracuse,
但都没有确凿线索。
but none of them had concrete evidence.
而此时，家族势力也在打出自己的牌。
Meanwhile, the family's forces are also playing their own cards.
威尼斯家族的家主老威尼斯也回归了新沃尔辛尼。
The head of the Venice family, Old Venice, has returned to Nuvio El Sinai.
他先是婉拒了阿尔贝托的拉拢，
He first politely declined Alberto's advances
又与安东尼奥一道向忍冬发出邀请。
and invited Antonio along with him to the winter solstice.
这一系列巧合，
This series of coincidences
让本就存在芥蒂的家族与官方更加剑拔弩张。
let the family, which already has a grudge against each other, become even more at odds with the official.
而忍冬在威尼斯家族与安东尼奥的相认并不愉快。
And R.I. Enjo was not pleased with the recognition of Antonio by the Venice family.
他不想重回家族政治，
She did not want to return to family politics.
无论是安东尼奥的刻意拉拢，
Whether it was Antonio's deliberate outreach,
还是老威尼斯的亲情流露，
still the affection of Old Venice.
都没能打动他。
None of them could move her.
恰逢老温贝托为了救出被甘比诺和卡彭带走的卢奇诺，
Just as the old man Bede came to rescue Lucino, who had been taken by Gambino and Capone,
只身前往威尼斯家族与老威尼斯交涉。
travel along to the Venice family and negotiate with Old Venice.
此时只在乎女儿当初被害真相的忍冬，
At this moment, Rindong only cared about the truth of how his daughter was murdered.
或许是受到了温贝托想要保护家人的触动，
Perhaps it was touched by the desire of Umberto to protect his family,
也同时为了履行瓦古的委托，
also to fulfill the commission from Viegu.
他亲自保下了温贝托与卢奇诺二人，
She personally saved Umberto and Lucino.
并在最后交还了威尼斯家族的族徽。
And finally, he returned the coat of arms of the Venice family,
忍冬拒绝合作，
and during winter refuses to cooperate.
阿尔贝托与德米特里置身事外，
Alberto and Dimitri were bystanders.
再加上老威尼斯突然回归，
Plus, the old Venice suddenly returned.
卡车上暗藏的武备还随时可能暴露。
The weapons hidden on the truck are still likely to be exposed at any moment.
这一系列变化都极大地刺激了安东尼奥，
This series of changes greatly stimulated Antonio.
让他加紧实施起自己疯狂的夺权计划。
Let him accelerate the implementation of his insane plan for seizing power.
另一边，卡车工会主席伊雷尼从索莫尔口中得知了他的苦衷，
The president of the Truckers' Union, Irene, learned about his predicament from Summer,
以及威尼斯家族的阴谋。
and the conspiracy of the Venice family.
这些卡车司机被家族收买，
These truck drivers were bought by the family.
无疑构成了对市政府官方的背叛。
Undoubtedly constitutes a betrayal of the official government.
意识到自己百口莫辩的伊雷尼无路可退，
Irene, realizing she had no way out due to her inability to defend herself,
在拉普兰德的推动下，
under the push of Lapland,
伊雷尼放弃了通过正规法律保护索莫尔与卡车司机工会的想法，
Irene abandoned the idea of protecting Summer and the truck drivers' union through regular legal means.
转而求助于此前拉拢过自己的阿尔贝托。
Turned to Alberto, who had previously courted him.
二人前往新沃尔西尼港藏匿卡车的地方，
The two went to the place where the truck was hidden in New Wolf, Sini Harbor,
却发现卡车的藏匿地点已经燃起大火，
but they found that the hiding place of the truck was already on fire,
而他们也被急速赶赴现场的警察拘留起来。
and they were also detained by the police who rushed to the scene.
这把火其实是弑君者放的，
This fire was actually set by the regicide.
他为了保护自己视如家庭的卡车司机工会，
He protected the truck drivers' union, which she regarded as her family.
销毁证据，避免索莫尔被牵连，
Avoid Sawmel being implicated.
不得已出此下策。
Had no choice but to resort to this desperate measure.
然而，伊雷尼却因为这场火面临法律指控，
Irene, however, faced legal charges due to this fire.
各方势力也因为敏感时刻发生的港口大火，
All factions also experienced a major port fire during this sensitive time.
彼此间的猜疑不断升级。
The suspicion between them kept escalating.
索莫尔为了保护伊雷尼，
Summer was protecting Irene,
也出于对自己一时糊涂的悔恨，
also out of regret for their own momentary foolishness.
最终求助家族势力，
The final appeal of the family faction.
希望帮伊雷尼脱罪。
I hope to help Irene atone.
威尼斯家族却将索莫尔杀人灭口，
The Venetian family, however, murdered Summerell to cover up the crime.
以此造成死无对证的局面。
This creates a situation where there is no proof of death.
而此时的德克萨斯
And at this moment, Texas.
虽然应拉普兰德邀请回到新沃尔西尼，
Although invited by Lapland, he returned to New Wolsey.
但在这里他的单兵战斗力帮不上忙，
But here, her individual combat power is of no help,
只能协助赤罪盯防拉普兰德，
can only assist in monitoring Lapland.
却反被后者带着一路寻找事件的真相。
But instead, they were led by the latter in searching for the truth of the event.
拉普兰德似乎对新沃尔西尼的市政府并无意见。
Lapland seems to have no opinion on the new Wolfsense City government.
在法庭上，
In the courtroom,
二人共同见证了一幕闹剧。
the two witnessed a scene of farce together.
阿尔贝托与安东尼奥两个黑道头子，
Alberto and Antonio, two mafia bosses.
居然竟想以好市民的身份帮伊雷尼作保。
The text translates to, they even competed to act as guarantor for Irene with the identity of a good citizen,
试图将知晓威尼斯家族黑料的伊雷尼拉到自己的阵营中。
trying to bring Irene, who knows about the black material of the Venetian family, to his own camp.
对此，新沃尔西尼的法律也是毫无办法。
There is nothing they can do about the new laws in Volos INI.
法庭结束之后，
After the trial ended,
伊雷尼仍然被黑帮头目纠缠。
Irene is still being pursued by the gang leader.
在弑君者的及时支援下，
With the timely support of the Regicides,
这才痛定思痛，
only after the pain had subsided did he think.
回归卡车司机工会。
Return to the truck drivers union.
但卡车司机工会和黑帮存在勾结可能这件事，
But there is a possibility of collusion between the truck drivers union and the mafia.
已经成功将赤罪的血压拉爆，
Successfully raised the blood pressure of urine sin.
加上之前4月的车祸和港区的大火，
Add the car accident that occurred while on night duty in the fire at the port area.
他毫不怀疑新沃尔西尼里面有一个阴谋集团，
She had no doubt that there was a conspiracy group inside the new Wolsey.
打算在狂欢节举办时把市政府给送上天。
The plan is to send the city government to heaven during the carnival.
换做他人，或许就要开始解锁偏执度系统了。
Maybe it's time to start unlocking the paranoia system.
但赤罪此时已经不是曾经那个
But the convict is no longer the same person he once was.
无形中依靠了贝纳尔多后台的拉维尼亚，
Invisible support from Bernardo's background Lavinia.
他仍希望坚持用法律手段解决问题，
He still hopes to resolve the issue through legal means,
甚至在最极端的情况下，
even in the most extreme cases.
以遵守法律的姿态倒下。
Follow in a manner that upholds the law.
但不管怎样，新沃尔西尼的紧张度已经步步攀升。
The tension in New Volos INI has been escalating step by step.
赤罪授意德克萨斯与警察一同拘留阿尔贝托，
Convicted of murder, Alberto was arrested by the police at the instigation of Texas,
并让德米特里暂时接管了萨鲁佐家族产业。
and let Dimitri temporarily take over the Salusio family business.
安东尼奥这只惊弓之鸟也选择了发动家族政变。
Antonio, this bird startled by arrows, also chose to launch a family coup,
软禁老威尼斯，
softly confining old Venice.
排除异己，打算拉上所有人一同发动暴乱。
Intended to gather everyone and launch a riot together.
伊雷尼盘完局势后，
After Irene assessed the situation,
决定带领卡车司机工会全员去找赤罪，
decided to lead all members of the truck drivers union to find Hall Sin.
打算说服他动用暴力手段，
Planned to convince her to use violent means.
物理消灭家族成员，
Physical elimination of family members.
如此才能保护卡车司机工会与新乌尔西尼的秩序。
This is how we can protect the order of the truck drivers. Union and New Volos INI.
另一边，忍冬也认识到了谁才是加害林兰的凶手，
Aren't you also realized who the murderer of Ringland was?
而温贝托则准备坦然面对自己的命运。
And Umberto was prepared to face his destiny with courage.
这次狂欢节终于开幕，
Carnival finally opened.
各方势力也是摩拳擦掌，
All factions are also eagerly awaiting.
或许能点爆这个火药桶的，
Perhaps it could be detonated by this firecracker.
就是一声简简单单的法令枪响。
It was just a simple gunshot.
神父阿格尼尔已经混入了狂欢节的人群中，
Father Agnire has already infiltrated the crowd at the festival.
他相当于西西里夫人的钦差，
He is equivalent to the ambassador of the Sicilian woman.
考察新沃尔西尼的发展，
Examine the development of New Volos INI.
在必要时刻出手稳定局势。
Act at the necessary moment to stabilize the situation.
威尼斯家族的暴徒已经准备围攻法院，
The violent members of the Venetian family have already prepared to attack the court,
但他们却遇到了在此严阵以待的卡车司机工会。
but they encountered a group of truck drivers waiting in formation.
虽然伊雷尼提出的派警察把家族势力一个个送上天的提案，
Although Irene proposed sending the family factions one by one to heaven with police,
并没有得到车队的认同，
did not receive the recognition of the guilty.
但卡车司机工会依然保护着自己身后的法院，
But the truck drivers' union still protects the court behind it,
因为他们清楚，
because they are clear.
这是自己获取新生活的最后机会。
This is the last chance for a new life.
弑君者此刻也时刻提防伊雷尼做出出格的举动，
The regicide was also constantly on guard against Irene's outrageous actions.
他并不想看到第二个塔鲁拉出现在自己身旁，
She did not want to see the second Tallulah appear beside her.
只是家族的暴徒此时却遇到了一个小小的问题。
The clan's troublemaker has now encountered a small problem.
耶，怎么都到举大事的时候了？
It's time for a big event.
安东尼奥约定的武器还迟迟未到。
The weapons Antonio agreed on are still not here.
就在双方对峙的时刻，
Just as the two sides were about to meet.
拉普兰德却身着华丽礼服，
Lapland, however, was dressed in a magnificent gown.
乘着陆行舰闯进了现场，
Riding the landing ship, they breached the scene.
将原定发放给黑帮的武器
The weapons originally intended for the gang,
堂而皇之地扔在了场地中央，
elegantly thrown in the center of the field.
任由双方拾取。而甘比诺与卡彭这哼哈二将
And Gavin Ho and Che Pen, the two generals who grumble.
早已对拉普兰德心服口服，
Long ago, I was convinced by Lapland.
他们一个帮拉普兰德掌控了陆行船，
They controlled the land ships for Lapland.
另一个则将原本准备指挥暴乱的安东尼奥
Another one was prepared to command the riot.
引到了渴望替女儿复仇的忍冬面前。
Brought before Rin, who desired vengeance for her daughter.
小丑安东尼奥根本无力反抗，
The clown Antonio was completely unable to resist.
被忍冬一刀秒杀。
Killed in one hit by Rin Dom.
最后将他补刀的
The one who finished him off.
是他亲自贬黜的前元老卡尔，
It was the former elder, Carl, who he personally demoted,
以及他自以为软禁住的老威尼斯。
and the old Venice he thought he had imprisoned.
另一边，红终于找到了坦然赴死的温贝托。
Red finally found the one who met his death calmly, Umberto.
温贝托的开导让红思考起了狼主游戏的意义。
B2's guidance made Reed think about the meaning of the Wolf King game.
他并未处决温贝托，
She did not execute on Bet 2,
而是让他平静地寿终正寝。
but let him die peacefully.
最终杀死安东尼奥的那声冲响，
The sound of Antonio's death
并未引爆对峙双方的冲突。
did not trigger a conflict between the two parties.
失去指挥的家族成员
Family members who lost command.
也不想为不切实际的暴乱送命。
I don't want to die for unrealistic riots.
卡车司机对这些融了新城区的家族
The truck drivers are referring to these families that have integrated into the new city area.
谈不上有什么深仇大恨，
There's no deep-seated hatred between them.
毕竟过去暴力统治下的秩序
After all, the order under violent rule.
是众人潜意识中都拒绝的事物。
It is something that everyone subconsciously rejects.
如今武器在手，
Now that we have the weapons in hand,
双方反而不敢轻举妄动，
both sides actually dare not act rashly.
否则就将成为新沃尔西尼的历史罪人。
Otherwise, they will become the sinners of New Welshani's history.
于是，一幕荒诞的场景出现。
And a scene of absurdity appeared.
待到狂欢节的人群行至法院面前，
Until the crowd of revelers reaches the courthouse.
人们只得戴上狂欢面具，夹道欢迎，
Everyone had to wear masks and line the streets to welcome them.
无论他们现在是否愿意，
Whether they are willing now or not.
他们都已经成为了狂欢节的一部分。
They have all become part of the carnival.
拿普兰德与德克萨斯在人群的欢呼中，
Lapland and Texas and the crowd cheers.
为新生的沃尔西尼献上最后一舞。
Dance one last time for the new Wolsey.
在此之后，他们间的执念也将烟消云散。
Their obsession will also dissipate.
而伤愈的莱昂图索与德米特里一起，
Amanotas, who had recovered from his injuries together with Dmitri,
回归了他忠诚的新沃尔西尼，
returned to his loyal new Wolsey.
并按原计划进行了市长的就职演说。
And the mayor's inauguration speech was carried out as originally planned.
这份文件将和撤罪的新都市管理法案一同，
This document will be submitted together with the new Urban Management Act of the Ministry of Justice.
深深影响整个叙拉古的政治风貌。
Deeply influenced the entire political landscape of Syracuse.
像小辈们打打闹闹，反正解决了问题。
See the juniors playing around, they solved the problem anyway.
新沃尔西尼局势最终稳定，
The situation in New Volshani eventually stabilized.
阿格尼尔也满意的离去。
Agur also left contentedly.
伊雷尼与德克萨斯也都选择
Irene and Texas also made their choices.
了加入新沃尔西尼的管理机构，贡献自己的力量。
Contribute your strength to the management institution of New VOL Shinai.
之前在养伤的乔万纳
Previously, when Johanna was recovering,
也回归叙拉古，找德克萨斯再续前缘。
also returned to Syracuse to reunite with Texas.
老威尼斯清洗了安东尼奥的部署，
Old Van has cleaned Antonio's subordinate.
将一切非法操作都高速切割了出去，
All illegal operations were rapidly cut out.
成功留了威尼斯家族一条活路。
Successfully left a way for the Venice family.
只是英格丽再也不可能回归了。
Ingrid will never return again.
文明的新沃尔西尼不可能容得下一位家族杀手，
The new VOL Gurn of civilization cannot accommodate another family assassin.
因此他的选择是前往罗德岛照顾自己的女儿。
Therefore, her choice was to go to Rhode Island to take care of her daughter.
一切落幕，这一轮狼主游戏也迎来结束。
This round of the Wolf King game has also come to an end.
凯撒获得了属于愤怒的胜利，
Caesar obtained the victory that belonged to the slave.
红也被他无情抛弃，
Red was also cruelly abandoned by him.
陷入了迷茫。这时是之前被红反复暴打的弑君者救下了他。
It was the crown sovereign who had been repeatedly beaten by Red who saved her.
弑君者本人也与红一同回归罗德岛，寻求凯西的帮助。
The regicide himself also returned to Rhode Island with Reed to seek Salzy's help.
狼主们在拉普兰德与扎罗的劝诱下，
The Wolf Lords were emptied by Lapland and Giros.
一致觉得一同观察人类的权力游戏，
Everyone agreed that it was their right to observe the human power game together.
要比此前的狼主游戏更有意思。
More interesting than the previous Wolfmaster game.
于是集体听从了拉普兰德的召唤，
So the collective followed Lapland's call.
并筹谋着与其他兽主们一同面对即将到来的威胁。
Facing the upcoming threat alongside other Beastmasters.
新沃尔西尼的未来，
The future of New VOL Shinai.
在这次充满反讽与戏剧的风波下，
In this storm of irony and drama,
终于揭开了自己的序幕。
finally the curtain was raised on his own story.
揭幕者们的剧情也就到此结束。
The story of the Unveilers ends here.
初看揭幕者们的剧情，
At first glance, the plot of the Revealers,
我们很容易发现，
we can easily find.
这次剧情延续了长夜灵光以来的群像描写，
This plot continues the collective portrayal since Long Night Near El.
大量拥有不同立场的角色之间
A large number of characters with different stances,
展开了激烈的互动，
engaged in intense interaction.
对同一事件各有立场的描写，
Descriptions of the same event from different perspectives.
更让整个故事的发展与结局出乎意料。
Makes the entire story's development and ending more unexpected.
但与此前所有的群像剧不同，
But different from all the previous crowd dramas.
揭幕者们中的所有角色
All characters in the Revelators.
似乎都没有真正实现自己的目标。
It seems that none of them have truly achieved their goals.
叙拉古的社会向前进步了，
The society of Syracuse has progressed forward.
但这种进步充满了泥潭中翻滚的狼狈。
But this progress is filled with the awkwardness of struggling in the mud.
只是，如果我们觉得角色们不过是进行了一次惊险刺激的狂欢，
If we feel that the characters merely had an exciting and thrilling carnival,
那离故事的主旨确实也相去甚远。
that is indeed far from the main theme of the story.
要如何走入揭幕者们的群像当中，
How to enter the crowd of the Revealers.
就必须先搞清楚
It must be clarified first.
角色们的立场站位是怎样的。
What are the positions and stances of the characters?
揭幕者们的剧情中
In the plot of the Revelators,
反复提到这两个核心命题：
repeatedly mention these two core propositions.
一是探讨市民与家族、
One is to explore the relationship between citizens and families.
新秩序与旧秩序究竟如何对立与统一，
How does the new order oppose and unify with the old order?
可以总结为文明与荒芜，或者说文明与野蛮。
It can be summarized as civilization and desolation or civilization and barbarism.
文明与荒芜问题
Civilization and wilderness issue
涉及的是角色们处事的手段。
involves the methods used by the characters.
文明一方使用法律与协商手段解决问题，
One civilization resolves issues through legal and negotiation means.
遵循既定的规则框架行事。
Act according to the established rules framework.
新沃尔西尼市政府是其中的代表，荒
The new government of Volos INI is one of them.
芜一方则兴奋暴力与弱肉强食。
Wherever there is desolation, they worship violence and the survival of the fittest.
规则在他们眼中只是确认暴力夺取的成果。
Rules in their eyes are just the confirmation of violent acquisition.
狼之主的游戏是其中的代表。
The game of the Wolf King is a representative among them.
二是反吻远大理想与欲望本能，
The second is the irony of lofty ideals and instinctual desires,
永远在人的身上难分难解，
always inseparable from the human body.
可以总结为人兽同途。
Can be summarized as man and beast share the same path.
人兽同途的问题，
The issue of coexisting with beasts and humans.
涉及的是角色们处事的原则。
The text translates to, it involves the principles of how the characters handle matters.
人的特质让角色们放眼长远，
The traits of people allow the characters to look ahead.
贯彻理想，为他人而牺牲。
They sacrifice for others.
其中的典型是温贝托与赤罪的高尚行为。
The typical example is Umberto's noble behavior and penance.
兽的特质让角色们响应本能，
The traits of beasts make the characters respond to their instincts.
勇于情感，乃至无恶不作。
Even worse, they did everything evil.
其中的典型当然是安东尼奥与凯撒这样的畜生。
Among them, of course, are the beasts like Antonio and Caesar.
但文明与荒芜，人与兽之间都并非截然对立，而是存在着条件微妙的旋转门，
But there exists a revolving door with subtle conditions.
甚至只是不同场景下表现出来的不同面貌。
Even just different appearances shown in different scenarios.
揭幕者们中，
In the Revelators,
还有一批在人与兽、文明与荒芜之间徘徊、游荡与挣扎的中间角色，他们的行为与立场
their behavior and stance
能帮助我们更深入地理解这两个命题，
can help us understand these two propositions more deeply.
同时处在两个舞台中央的，
At the center of both stages simultaneously,
也正是剧情叙事的中心。
it is also the center of the plot narrative.
荒芜拉普兰德，他既不拘于繁文缛节，
She is not bound by 繁琐的仪式.
在众人眼中显现狂人模样，
In the eyes of others, he appeared mad,
又始终维持理智，
always maintaining composure.
顺水推舟，甚至整场剧情中都没出过一次手。他既多方助推叙拉古的进步，
She promoted Syracuse's progress in multiple ways.
又能不忘找找老朋友，
Could also not forget to look for old friends.
坑坑家里的犬妇。
The dog father at the pit house.
拉普兰德是最不像人的人，
Lapland is the least human-like of all.
最不像兽的兽，
The beast that resembles nothing.
也是最文明的荒芜，最荒芜的文明。
The most desolate civilization.
只有将他在这两个命题中的位置搞清楚，
Only by clarifying her position in these two propositions,
我们才能真正理解揭幕者们的一切。
we can only truly understand the revealers.
接下来，我们将会在两条坐标轴上
We will be on two coordinate axes.
画出角色们在两大问题中的9宫格，
Draw a 3x3 grid for the characters in the two major issues.
沿着9宫格逐步解析揭幕者们的角色立场设计，
Gradually break down and reveal the character positions of the unveilers along the 9 grid.
如何展现了文明与荒芜、
How did it illustrate civilization and desolation?
人与兽的纠结，又如何将精彩的叙事、精密的逻辑布置其中？
How to intricately arrange the splendid narrative and precise logic within it.
沿着理想主义这个明日方舟剧情的核心，
Following the core of the AR Knights plot, which revolves around idealism,
我们最能直接理解的，
the one we can understand most directly,
自然是人的阵营，四叶与赤罪以及新沃尔西尼的领导者们，
and the leaders of Nuvi, Welsh and I,
在舞台上扮演着文明的人，
on the stage playing as a civilized person.
以规则与法律引领自己的理想前进。
Translate the text into English.
他们是方舟剧情中永远会有的一批人，
They are a group of people who will always be present in the arc storyline
为了叙拉古更好的未来，
for a better future for Syracuse.
他们不遗余力，
They do not spare any effort,
前赴后继，值得我们的尊敬。
worthy of our respect.
但揭幕者们的反粉
But the irony of the Revelators
并没有因此绕开他们。
did not bypass them for this reason.
新城市管理法案难以真正根除家族的基础，
The new Urban Management Act is difficult to truly eliminate the foundation of the family.
因为利益关系仍然引导着叙拉古人结成攻守同盟。
Because of the interests, the people of Saragossa are still forming an alliance.
险些沦为暴力团的卡车司机工会就是个好例子。
The Truckers Union, which nearly became a gang of violent individuals, is a good example.
四叶的新秩序中也仍然有着自己的人之常情。
In the same night, New Order also had its own human nature.
他为了表露自己的大公无私，
He did this to show his great sense of public service,
也刻意推开了愿意加入新秩序的贝洛内家族，
also deliberately pushed away the Bologna family which was willing to join the New Order,
以及始终愿意配合帮助的德米特里。
and always willing to cooperate and help Dmitri.
新秩序建立绝非众人想象的那么轻而易举，
The establishment of the new order was not as easy as everyone imagined.
甚至其中处处能看到家族旧秩序的影子。
Even the shadows of the family's old order can be seen everywhere.
这处反讽贯穿了剧情的全部篇幅，
This irony runs throughout the entire plot.
直到最后，
Until the end,
新沃尔西尼都仍然有着家族，
Nouveau's HYN still has the family.
只不过他们不会再像安东尼奥一样不知抬举了。
They just won't be clueless like Antonio anymore.
尽管警察与官僚也会专权腐败，
Despite the police and officials also engaging in tyranny and corruption,
甚至成为某种意义上的新家族，
even become some kind of new family,
但是叙拉古的确已经被改变了。
Siracusa has indeed been changed.
免于恐惧的自由，
Freedom from fear.
在叙拉古也将不再是一句空话。
Siracusa will no longer be just an empty phrase.
在理想主义者们对面，
On the opposite side of the idealist,
荒芜的人会冷眼旁观，
the wasteland person would observe coldly,
因为他们的经历告诉他们，
because their experiences tell them
文明有着自己的边界。
civilization has its own boundaries.
他们十分理解，暴力才是社会的底层逻辑。
Violence is the underlying logic of society.
剧情中选择救济卡车司机对抗家族的伊雷尼，
In the story, choose to gather truck drivers to oppose the family with Irene,
以及选择用暴力维系秩序的西西里夫人，
and the Duchess of Sicily, who maintains order through violence,
并不会真正成为理想主义进步力量的敌人。
won't truly become the enemy of idealistic progressive forces.
但他们的反讽之处在于，
But their irony lies in
荒芜的手段多多少少会让理想追求变味。
too much or too little can spoil the pursuit of ideals.
伊雷尼最初只想保护卡车司机伙伴们，
Elena initially just wanted to protect her truck driver friends.
最后却险些把卡车司机工会变成了家族，
In the end, it almost turned the truckers' union into a family,
把维权行动变成了全城大暴乱的一部分。
transformed the protest action into part of a citywide riot.
西西里夫人建立了处与秩序，
Mrs. Sicily established order and harmony,
但黑帮们对平民百姓的欺压从没少过，
but the oppression of civilians by the gangs has never stopped.
实质性的改革也根本推不下去。
Substantial reforms are also fundamentally unfeasible.
说到最后，哪怕有再多的苦衷与不情愿，
Even with the most profound grievances and reluctance,
实现理想也必须有超越短期暴力的手段，
achieving the ideal also requires means that transcend short-term violence.
因为暴力终究会随着个体力量的衰弱而灭亡。
Because violence will ultimately perish with the weakening of individual strength.
只有思想上的变革，
Only a change in mindset.
才能带来持久的改变。
Ability can bring about lasting change.
那些在文明与荒芜间挣扎的人，
Those who struggle between civilization and wilderness.
则往往在手段与目的的错位间徘徊。
It often hovers between the misalignment of means and ends.
德克萨斯在整场剧情中貌似成了拉普兰德的陪聊，
Texas seems to have become Lapland's sidekick throughout the entire plot.
但实际上，最后的德克萨斯在新沃尔西尼确实也无处施展。
The last of the decks as a Nuvio Elshin, indeed has nowhere to display itself.
文明丛林间的德克萨斯，
The Texas in the civilized jungle.
唯有成为新政府的合作者，
The only way is to become a partner of the new government,
才能参与到新沃尔西尼的改革中。
able to participate in the reforms of Nouveau's HYN.
弑君者作为剧情中仅次于拉普兰德的精神导师，
The regicide as the spiritual mentor in the plot second only to Lapland.
接连开导了索莫尔、伊雷尼与红三个角色，
Continuously guided the Summer, Irene, and Reed characters.
精神不可谓不高尚，
The spirit cannot be said to be lowly.
意志不可谓不坚定，
Willpower cannot be said to be lacking.
但他也确实来到了不属于他的战场。
But she did indeed arrive at a battlefield that was not hers.
只能说，倒霉蛋最幸运的地方，
The luckiest place for a misfortune-prone person.
就是他要努力拯救的人，
It's the person she needs to work hard to save.
都的确需要他的帮助，
They indeed need her help.
而他的不懈努力，
And her relentless efforts.
也的确让故事走向了好结局。
It also lead the story to a good ending.
新沃尔西尼夹在人兽之间的角色，
New Wolf Simi is a character sandwiched between human and beast.
都是新旧秩序夹缝中的家族成员。
All are members of families caught between the old and new orders.
他们做人不好做，
They are not good at being human.
却又不好当回暴力团。
But it's also not good to go back to being a violent gang.
他们的挣扎也能让我们一窥剧情表达的主旨。
Can also let us glimpse the theme of the plot expression.
忍冬与老威尼斯的威尼斯家族，
Enduring winter and the Venetian family of old Venice.
更接近我们对黑帮家族的传统印象。
closer to our traditional impression of a family in the context of organized crime.
不问出处，彼此扶持，构成了威尼斯家族的基础。
Form the foundation of the Venetian family.
细细想来，这其实是一个相当荒芜的特点，
This is actually a rather barren characteristic.
没有那么多等级和血缘的繁文缛节，
No need for so much hierarchy and bloodline nonsense.
就像真正的狼群一般扩张与捕猎。
Like a true pack, expanding and hunting.
但在人类社会中，
But in human society,
他们也不可避免地遭遇社会关系带来的纠结。
they also inevitably encounter the complications brought about by social relationships.
拥有了家庭的忍冬，不再是曾经的那个冷血杀手。老威尼斯也终究要面对权力关系转变带来的背叛。
Old Venice will ultimately face betrayal brought about by the shift in power dynamics.
于是，以暴力为生的人远离了暴力，
People who make a living through violence have distanced themselves from it.
不愿操弄权力的人
People who do not want to manipulate power.
却需要举起清洗的屠刀。
But it requires raising the butcher's knife for cleaning.
德米特里的贝洛内家族，
Dimitri's Bell family.
在贝纳尔多与四叶这俩主心骨结束家族以后，
In Bernardo and Nightwatcher, these two pillars of the family have ended.
依然有相当一批追随者。
There are still quite a few followers.
这至少能够证明，
This at least proves
对他们而言，家族的生活并不只是利益与权利，
the life of the family is not just about interests and power.
更是自己信念的寄托。
It is also a detour of his own beliefs.
少主四叶的理想，
The ideal of the young master's night watch,
大概也是其中的一部分。
probably also part of it.
然而，这样的理想
However, such an ideal,
却在敏感的局势下，
however, in a sensitive situation,
无法被新沃尔西尼所容纳。
unable to be accommodated by new will say.
大概，文明终究也只是一个特定的框架，
Civilization is ultimately just a specific framework.
总有些人要被无可奈何地排挤在外。
There are always some people who have to be reluctantly excluded.
德米特里只能努力挤进新沃尔西尼的游戏，
Mitri can only struggle to squeeze into the new Wolf-Cini game.
恰似温贝托竭尽全力才能逃脱狼主的游戏。
Just like Umberto had to use all his strength to escape the Wolf Lord's game.
西装裁缝店德蒙塔诺，
Taylor Shop di Montano.
既是叙拉古高层体面的源头，
It is the source of dignity for the high-ranking officials in Syracuse.
也曾是刺客的潜伏地点。
It was also a hiding spot for assassins.
狼主獠牙的伪装，
The disguise of the Wolf Lord's tooth treatment.
但有多少人能在临死的时候，
But how many people can be at the moment of their death?
手头还做着那件自己做了一辈子的活计呢？
Still doing the job that I've been doing my whole life.
若文明与荒芜的路走到最后都只剩体面，
If the paths of civilization and desolation ultimately leave only dignity,
我们至少也能拥有属于自己的体面。
we at least deserve our own dignity.
温贝托的故事告诉我们，
Owen Bear's story tells us,
无论文明的规则还是荒芜的规则，
whether it's the rules of civilization or the rules of the wilderness,
越沉浸其中，也就越丧失人的温度。
the more it loses the warmth of humanity.
但新沃尔西尼人的真正对立面，
But the true opposite of the new WOL Sinai people is
并非阴魂不散的家族与暴力，
not a family of restless spirits and violence.
也不是规则框架天生自带的纠缠与低效，
It's not something that comes naturally with the rules framework, like entanglement and inefficiency,
而是潜藏于人之本能，
but it is hidden in the instincts of man.
具象化为狼主游戏的兽性。
Translate into English, the concept of bestiality as in the game Wolfmaster.
在人类社会运行的最初阶段，
In the initial stages of human society's operation,
暴力与权力紧密挂钩，
violence and power are closely linked.
狼主的权力游戏也因此成为了血腥的斗蛐蛐。
The power game of the Wolf Lord thus became a bloody fight.
时过境迁，社会讲起了规则秩序，
Society spoke of rules and order.
然而那些人面兽心、衣冠禽兽之辈，
However, those people with beastly hearts and human faces wearing the clothes of beasts.
此刻想要掠夺的并非暴力，
At this moment, what is being sought is not violence,
而是恣意妄为的权力。
but it is the power that acts with impunity.
因此，我们也能看到，
So we can also see that.
狼主中最出神的是玩弄权力与话术的凯撒，
The most beastly among the Wolf Lords is Caesar, who plays with power and rhetoric.
还有曾经差点靠贝纳尔多赢麻的扎罗。
And there was also Zaro, who almost won a game of Majhorm with Bernardo.
家族中最出神的，
The most beastly in the family.
也是热衷于弄权和控制他人的安东尼奥。
Also, Antonio is passionate about manipulating and controlling others.
看人毫不手软的阿尔贝托也能算在其中吧。
Alberto, who is not at all hesitant to deceive others, can be included in this group as well.
这些文明的兽比起真正荒芜的兽，
Compared to truly desolate beasts,
不知要可怕多少倍，也是叙拉古剧情主要的攻击对象。
also the main target of Syracuse's plot.
安东尼奥的存在意义曾被他人否定，
The significance of Antonio's existence has been denied by others.
因此潜意识中就渴望在权力上压过他人，
Therefore, there is an unconscious desire for power over others,
甚至在矛盾并未扩大时，
even when the contradiction had not yet escalated.
看不惯新沃尔西尼的规则管制就动手，
Can't stand the new rules of New Volos INI, so they took action.
最后血流在地上，
The last blood flowed on the ground.
也变成了大大的叉。
It also became a big fork.
实际上，新旧秩序对他而言，
Actually, the new and old order meant nothing to him.
都只不过是满足个人权利欲的工具。
They were merely tools to satisfy personal power desires.
说他像杰斯顿，
He said he was like Jackson.
那多少有点侮辱杰斯顿的喜剧效果了。
That's a bit insulting to the comedic effect of Jackson, isn't it?
说到最后，恶人自有恶人磨，
Evildoers will be ground down by other evildoers.
坑人者人恒坑之。
The text Karanja, Zhen Hong Kongja translates to the deceiver will always deceive.
倒霉但又挺罪有应得的阿尔贝托，
Unlucky but well deserved Alberto.
大概是能告诉我们这个道理的。
Probably something that can tell us this lesson.
相比之下，红这只荒芜的手反倒挺人畜无害的。
The beast of desolation is actually quite harmless.
他遵循本能的生活方式，
She follows a lifestyle of instinct.
不假思索的杀戮手段，
Impulsive killing method.
全都是被狼主凯撒编织出的谎言。
All of them are lies woven by the wolf Lord Caesar.
不过，经历过温贝托与弑君者的开导，
After being enlightened by Umbet and the monarch,
他的成长也是情理之中。
her growth is also within reason.
有了自己的生存意义之后，
After having my own purpose for survival,
他大概才会算是一个真正的人。
she is probably the only true human.
说来也怪啊，虽然我也会希望自己不去纠结那些目的和手段，
Although I also wish that I wouldn't have to worry about those purposes and means.
这样或许会过得更加开心，
This way might make you happier.
但还真就需要那么点意义。
But it really does need some meaning.
除此之外，兽的阵营中还剩下些有趣的角色，
There are still some interesting characters left.
比如说甘比诺和卡彭这哼哈二将，
For example, Gambino and Tapon, the two lieutenants.
也算是陪着方舟剧情打满全场了。
It can be said that we have accompanied the arc storyline and fought through all areas.
他们始终诚实地遵从自己的欲望，
They always honestly follow their desires.
一个满脑子想着西西里人的名誉，
A mind full of thoughts about Sicilian's reputation.
一个满脑子想着怎么搞钱和往上爬，
A person who is always thinking about how to make money and climb the social ladder.
既能钻新沃尔西尼制度的空子，
Can exploit the loopholes in the new Whaleside system.
又能转眼间对威尼斯家族翻脸，
Can also turn on a dime against the Venetian family.
不算人面兽心，
Not human in appearance, not beast in heart.
但更谈不上心无杂念。
But it's even less about having no distracting thoughts.
关键时刻却有一些当人的表现，
At a critical moment, Chen showed some human-like behavior.
虽然他们绝不算什么善良之人，
Although they are by no means kind-hearted people,
但我确信他们会永远不知疲倦地追逐自己的下一个猎物。
they will tirelessly chase their next prey forever.
这种充实感会让我这种文明人产生羡慕之意。
Would make me, a civilized person, feel envious.
同时，狼主阵营剩余的瓦古与阿涅塞，
The remaining VAG and SSAI of the Wolf Lords faction.
作为通人性的养成系狼主，也有许多鲜活的描写。
As a wolf master who cultivates human-like qualities, there are also many vivid descriptions.
在狼主游戏变为獠牙决斗的时候，
When the game of the Wolf Lord turned into a healing duel,
这场看似荒芜的游戏
this seemingly desolate game,
就定然会染上人类社会规则的痕迹。
it will inevitably bear the marks of human societal rules.
阿涅塞就像养女儿一样养着紫月，
And ESE raises Iana like a daughter.
瓦古与温贝托的关系，
The relationship between VAG and Umberto,
甚至就像是人类社会中的至交亲朋。
even like close friends and relatives in human society.
但这是兽主们通了人性吗？
But have the Beastmasters transcended their humanity?
我个人不会这样认为。
I personally wouldn't think so.
阿涅塞养育紫月的方式，
The way Ashes raises Anne,
以及瓦古共情温贝托的方式，
and the way Wango empathize S with Wubetu,
仍然遵循着野兽的本能。
still following the instincts of a beast.
说到最后啊，还真是扎罗这个区区爱好者最像人，
Zaro's fan is the most human-like.
也难怪他第一个当上了拉普兰德的狗。
It's no wonder it was the first one to become a dog in Lapland.
此时，狼之主们的纠结与犹豫，
The woes and hesitations of the wolf lords.
与我们人类在文明与荒芜间的纠结的情景，
The scene of our human struggle between civilization and wilderness.
拥有了相似的特点。
Possesses similar characteristics.
着重描写这种纠结，
Focus on describing this conflict.
大概也是剧情设计上的一个小提醒。
It's probably a small reminder in the plot design.
只有人类才拥有超越丛林法则、
Only possesses laws that transcend the jungle.
权衡文明规则的权利。
The right to weigh the rules of civilization.
无论这种规则带来了怎样的善恶美丑，
No matter what kind of good or evil, beauty or ugliness this rule brings.
它都已经是人类这一概念中不可分割的部分。
It is already an inseparable part of the concept of humanity.
狼之主们追随拉普兰德，
The wolf lords follow Lapland.
觉得人类社会更有乐趣的原因，
The reason why human society seems more fun.
不外如是。于是，我们顺着揭幕者们视角切换的顺序，
We follow the order of switching perspectives as seen by the revealers.
便利舞台上全部8个立场的彼此映照，
I traded through the mutual reflections of all 8 positions on the stage.
终于来到了整个剧情中最难也最好理解的角色。
Finally, we've reached the character who is both the most difficult and easiest to understand in the entire plot.
狂欢之主拉普兰德的跟前。
In front of Lord of the Revelry, Lapland.
当然，大家会疑惑，为什么说拉普兰德始终处在舞台中央？
Why is Lapland always at the center of the stage?
拉普兰德难道不该是最能代表荒芜与兽性的角色吗？
Shouldn't the Dao be the character that best represents desolation and savagery?
他难道不是人世不都认为生来如此的狂人？
Isn't she the madman, whom everyone in HR believes was born this way?
一位像小丑那样考验人性的反英雄吗？
Evelyn is the anti-hero who tests human nature like a clown.
连他自己的干员名里面都带着荒芜啊！
Even her own operator name contains desolation.
但是我们无法否认的是，
We cannot deny that.
拉普兰德自始至终
Lapland from start to finish,
对自身的目的与手段
regarding one's purpose and means.
都清晰明了。从决定开着出租车进城开始，
Starting from the decision to drive a taxi into the city.
他就在进行着属于自己的谋篇布局。
She is engaged in her own strategic planning.
拉普兰德出租车的来头并不简单，
The origins of the Lapland taxi are not simple.
一批家族成员先是借着狂欢节，
A batch of family members first took advantage of the carnival,
伪造了自己的通关文牒，
faked their own pass,
打算靠出租车去新沃尔西尼谋生计，
planned to make a living in New Wolfsend by taking taxis,
却又在半路上火并起来，
but they ended up fighting each other halfway through.
无一生还。光是这个细节就足以证明好几件事。
It is enough to prove several things.
新沃尔西尼的现代管理模式
Modern management model of New Volos INI
的确给人在合法框架下改邪归正的动力，
certainly provides motivation for reform within legal frameworks,
但它本身又容易被钻空子。
but it is also easy to exploit.
人们甚至还会因为不小的物质利益开启争斗。
People even start disputes over significant material interests.
偏偏在这样的改革仍存疑虑的时候，
Just when there are still doubts about such reforms,
新沃尔西尼还恢复了曾经作为暴力象征的狂欢节。
New VOL Gurinai has also restored the carnival, which once served as a symbol of violence.
希望让它变成一张象征新生活的名片。
I hope it becomes a business card symbolizing new life.
有多少势力可能会因这次贸然试探蠢蠢欲动？
How many factions might be stirred up by this reckless probe?
自己的朋友们
My own friends.
究竟理不理解自己在玩火？
Do you really understand what you're playing with?
作为参与过沃尔西尼事变的叙拉古先进青年，
As a young advanced individual from Syracuse who participated in the Volschini incident,
拉普兰德不可能想不清楚这些隐患，
Lapland cannot be unaware of these risks.
而他接下来的行动
And her next move,
也是草蛇灰线，
it is also a grass snake,
埋伏已久。用着出租车司机的身份，
using the identity of a taxi driver.
拉普兰德在狂欢节前搞了一大串社会调研和心理辅导，
Lapland conducted a series of social surveys and psychological counseling before the carnival.
从他了解卡车司机藏车地点、甘比诺与卡彭行踪，
From what she learned about the truck driver's hiding spot, Gambino and Capone's whereabouts.
乃至在法院门口接到伊雷尼的行动来看，
As seen from Irene's actions even at the court door,
他已经把新沃尔西尼的那些弯弯绕绕
she has already sorted out those convoluted things from New Volos INI.
全都摸排过了一遍。
Everything has been thoroughly checked.
安东尼奥的暴乱计划没准都对他单向透明了。
Antonio's riot plan might have been transparent to her.
最后，他还专门把德克萨斯从龙门摇了过来，
She also specifically brought Texas over from the gateway.
很难说不是为了给四爷找更多的帮手。
It's difficult to say it wasn't for finding more helpers for the night watch.
光看这些行为，拉普兰德都快多至近腰了。
Lapland is almost overrun by demons.
他对德克萨斯说的话，
He said to Texas.
现在真能当成回旋镖打到他自己身上。
Now it can really be thrown back at her like a boomerang.
拉普兰德，你绝对是个理想主义者。
Lapland, use Arakusa crude, are an idealist through and through.
无论他多认为叙拉古是个无法逃脱的泥潭，
No matter how much she believed Syracuse was an inescapable quagmire.
他也始终希望看到有人能够脱离这个泥潭。
She also always hoped that someone could escape this quagmire.
但拉普兰德的理性与理想主义
But the rationality and idealism of Lapland,
也只会走到这一步。
it would only go this far.
他拨打了4夜车祸的报警电话，
She dialed the emergency number for a nighttime car accident,
却只在新沃尔西尼的紧张局势中顺水推舟。
but only went with the flow in the tense situation of New Volosini.
哪怕知道这一大堆情报，
Even if you know all this information.
但拉普兰德无论是对德克萨斯还是对官方，
But Lapland, whether it's towards Texas or the official stance,
都未曾透露一星半点的情报。
none of them have revealed any information.
最后驾驶陆行舰给冲突双方发放武器的做法，
The last method of distributing weapons to both sides involved driving on ship,
更不可能出自对新沃尔西尼的纯粹善意。
less likely to come from a purely benevolent desire for New Volosini.
要摸清他的心态，
To understand her mindset,
以人之常情去类比毫无意义。
to compare with human nature is meaningless.
不如聊聊文案为他安排的出场方式吧。
Let's talk about the way she was introduced in the script.
作为新沃尔西尼的出租车司机，
As a taxi driver in New Volosina,
拉普兰德的身份
the identity of Lapland,
显然致敬了《出租车司机》这部电影。
obviously paying homage to the movie Taxi Driver.
这部作品以反粉著称，一个越战老兵在混乱的社会中压抑孤独，
A Vietnam veteran suppresses loneliness in a chaotic society,
想要刺杀总统候选人未果，
failed to assassinate the presidential candidate,
转而杀了老鸨和嫖客，
switched and killed the old duck and the guest.
拯救了一名厨妓。这样一位在现代都市中格格不入的神经病枪手，
Such an erotic gunman out of place in the modern metropolis,
最后被社会舆论塑造为英雄。
last shaped into a hero by societal opinion,
而他开着陆行舰闯入会场发放武器的行为，
and her behavior of entering the venue in a hovercraft and distributing weapons.
又像是蝙蝠侠黑暗骑士崛起中，
It's like in Batman The Dark Knight Rises.
小丑将起爆器同时交给装有2个阶级代表的船只，
The clown simultaneously handed the detonator to the ships that carried to representatives of different classes.
看他们是否为了保全自身而互相毁灭的桥段。
Watch the segment where they might mutually destroy themselves to preserve their own existence.
新沃尔西尼人与哥谭市民也都做出了一样的选择，
The New Volosini and the Gotham citizens also made the same choice.
那就是保留了最后的一丝人性与体面。
That is retaining the last shred of humanity and dignity.
在这2部电影中，
And these two movies,
出租车司机与小丑都带有强烈的反社会性格，
the taxi driver and the clown both have strong antisocial personalities.
他们的反社会
Their antisocial behavior,
并非出自变态天性或者个人邪恶，
not due to a perverted nature or personal evil,
而是源自现代社会施加给他们的压抑和两难处境。
but it stems from the oppression and dilemmas imposed on them by modern society.
比起绝大多数选择忍一忍、好好过日子的普通人，
Compared to the majority of ordinary people who choose to endure and live a good life,
这2位反派选择扔掉文明的面具，
these two antagonists choose to discard the mask of civilization,
用反粉社会统治的方式展现现代社会的痼疾。
show the cancer of modern society through a satirical approach to social governance.
2部电影的导演都以此表达了自己对现代文明的批判。
Both directors expressed their criticism of modern civilization through these films.
我们也能从其中找到拉普兰德角色塑造的影子。
We can also find the shadow of character development from Lapland.
拉普兰德与他们一样，
Lapland is just like them,
都因为社会的压抑，
all because of the oppression from society,
塑造了对叙拉古这个泥潭的刻骨仇恨，
shaped a deep-seated hatred for Syracuse, this swamp,
以至于发展成对一切规则框架的蔑视与不信任。
until it devolved into contempt and distrust of all rule frameworks.
他在报道入职的第一个动作，
Her first action upon reporting for work,
就是故意用自己和武器共同占据一整张双人沙发。
it was intentionally using both himself and his weapon to occupy an entire double sofa.
这和他身为一格时把武器自说自话带进办公室一样。
This is like when she brought her weapons into the office on her own, even before she became a passenger.
都是来试探博士对高调逾越规则之人的态度。
All of them came to test the doctor's attitude towards those who overstep rules.
即便她在大多数时候
even though she was most of the time.
都规矩善良的像个3好学生。
All of them are so kind and well-behaved, like good students.
这种当笑时不笑，
This is when you should laugh but don't.
当悲时不悲的叛逆人格，
When the rebellious personality is not sad.
都塑造了拉普兰德在我们眼中的狂气与表演欲望。
All of these have shaped Lapland's madness and performance desires in our eyes.
这一重反差也成为了他人格魅力的一部分。
This stark contrast also became part of her personal charm.
但拉普兰德真到了从心所欲而不逾矩的程度吗？
But has Lapland really reached the point of doing as one pleases without going beyond bounds?
有一个锚点能让我们感知拉普兰德少有的纠结，
There is an anchor that allows us to perceive the rare tangle of Lapland.
那就是德克萨斯。
That's Texas.
曾经，拉普兰德与德克萨斯
Lapland in Texas.
同样遭受着家族政治对自己的人格摧残。
Similarly, they suffer the erosion of their personalities by family politics.
然而，出身哥伦比亚的德克萨斯果断做出了选择，
However, the Texan from Columbia made a decisive choice.
他与狼之主达成交易，
She made a deal with the Wolf Lord.
再把自己的父亲与家族全然抛弃，
Again, completely abandoning his father and the entire family.
似乎毫无留恋地抽身迎接了新生活。
It seems to have welcomed the new life without any reluctance.
拉普兰德对德克萨斯怀抱执念的原因，
The reason for Lapland's attachment to Texas.
就是他对德克萨斯的选择
It was her choice of Texas.
完全无法理解，甚至在叙拉古人里面，
Even in the Yeswiracu Sands.
若不是卢比奥舍身取义，发出了自己的呐喊，
If not for LGBI's cry of defiance.
德克萨斯也只会帮扎罗处理完委托，
Dakota will only help Zara complete the commission.
就直接头也不回的离开。
Just left without even looking back.
回头再看看拉普兰德对叙拉古看似不管不顾，
Look back at Lapland's seemingly unconcerned attitude towards Syracuse.
实际上一有机会
Actually, when the opportunity arises.
就开着出租车天天去搞新生活社会调研，
Just driving a taxi every day to do new life social research.
好不傲娇。究竟谁最在乎叙拉古？
Who cares the most about Syracuse?
究竟是谁的灵魂碎片仍然被困在叙拉古的雨季？
Who is the soul fragment still trapped in the rainy season of Syracuse?
结果不言而喻，
The result is obvious.
所有人都指望用一把火烧掉困住自己的东西，
Everyone hopes to burn away what is holding them captive.
但有多少人敢留下来？
But how many dare to stay?
看看灰烬里还剩什么？
Check what's left with Grazy Eye Chai.
拉普兰德因此始终在意着德克萨斯，
Lapland has always cared about Texas.
他其实是不愿意相信有人能如此轻易地逃离叙拉古这个泥潭。
Somehow, someone managed to escape from this quagmire of Syracuse so easily.
他对新沃尔西尼的反吻，
Her irony towards the new Woolsey.
也绝不只是出自对文明与规则的弱点洞察，
It is also not just a result of insight into the weaknesses of civilization and rules,
而是因为他已经意识到，
but because she had already realized
渴望打破面具挣脱叙拉古的枷锁，
desire to break the mask on to escape Xerox's grip.
已经成为了他自己的又一重面具。
She has become yet another mask of her own,
而德克萨斯甚至没有这样的烦恼，
even without such worries.
于是狂欢之主才设计了整场狂欢节。
The carnival master was the one who designed the entire carnival.
他希望揭破德克萨斯的面具，
He hopes to uncover the mask of Texas.
更是希望揭下自己的面具。
Even more so, I hope to reveal my own mask.
若是叙拉古永远逃离不了自己的劣根性，
If Syracuse can never escape its inherent flaws,
拉普兰德反而能得到轻松的解脱。
Lapland, on the other hand, would get an easy release.
然而，德克萨斯与新沃尔西尼都告诉他，
Texas and New Volos I both told her,
不可避免地戴着面具，
inevitably wearing a mask.
或许会让人哀叹、
Perhaps it would make someone sigh,
挣扎、狂怒，乃至做出种种非人的举动，
even resorting to inhumane acts,
沦为衣冠禽兽。
degenerate into beasts in human clothing.
然而，想要放下和解，
However, wanting to reconcile,
也只需要直面剧情中反复讲述的一件事：
it also only requires facing one thing repeatedly told in the plot.
我们面具背后掩盖的，
The mask we wear.
绝不可能是更高尚、更美好的样子。
Absolutely not in a more refined or beautiful manner.
它其实非常平庸，
It's actually quite ordinary.
就像德克萨斯选择逃离一样平庸。
Like Texas choosing to escape in a mediocre way.
德克萨斯从头到尾的所作所为，
Texas actions from start to finish.
无非就是在脚踏实地，眼睛向前看。
It's just about walking the talk and looking forward.
新沃尔西尼人
New Enzi.
更是在泥潭里边千奇百怪，
It's even stranger inside the mud pit.
挣扎讽刺，
Struggle and satire.
全无新生活应有的高尚与自由。
lacking the nobility and freedom that should be in life.
但就是这样的一群人，
But it was just such a group of people,
仍然将新沃尔西尼推向了属于自己的明天。
still pushing New Wolfsend towards its own tomorrow.
在叙拉古的泥潭中向前挣扎的脚踏实地的一步。
In the mud pit of Syracuse, he took a step forward with his feet firmly planted.
只有把新沃尔西尼人的反讽与纠结刻画得入木三分，
Only by portraying the irony and anguish of the new Volshnai people in vivid detail,
我们才会像拉普兰德一样，
we will be like Lapland,
意识到这一切反讽与纠结，
realizing all the irony and conflict.
其实都可以没那么重要。
Actually, they're not that important.
于是，他那被囚禁在雨季的灵魂，
Our soul imprisoned in the rainy season,
对德克萨斯的执念，
obsession with Texas.
也就到此为止。
That's all for now.
从此以后，他的理智与疯狂，
Her rationality and madness.
才真正获取了彻底的自由。
Only then did they truly obtain complete freedom.
理解了这一点，
Understood this point.
才是拉普兰德一格的转折点。
The turning point for Lapland's anomaly.
而为叙拉古带走所有的狼之主，
And take all the wolf lords from Syracuse.
是拉普兰德与自己的叛逆和解之后的自然结果。
It is the natural result of Lapland reconciling with its own rebellion.
文明的规矩有它的去处，
The rules of civilization have their place.
荒芜的法则也有能够掌管的事物。
The desolate laws also have things they can control.
哪怕叛逆与狂喜也只是一副面具，
Even rebellion and madness are just masks.
那又何妨？有人便有兽，有文明便有荒芜，你逃不掉，我也逃不掉。身在文明发达的现代社会，
Born in a modern, highly developed society,
谁人不需戴上几副口是心非的面具？
who doesn't need to wear a few masks of hypocrisy?
谁人不会痛恨那两面三刀的伪君子？
Who wouldn't hate that two-faced hypocrite?
撕下一层又一层融入脸皮的面具后，
After peeling off layer after layer of masks that had fused with his face,
所谓智人的本性中，
the so-called nature of humans.
是否隐藏着更虚无的毁灭冲动，
Is there a more hollow impulse of destruction hidden?
更挣脱束缚的凶残暴力？
More brutal and violent, breaking free from constraints?
答案或许是肯定的，
The answer might be affirmative.
但这又有什么所谓呢？
But what does it matter?
狂欢的永劫轮舞旋转不停，
The eternal wheel of carnival dances ceaselessly.
没有什么是永恒神圣的，
There is nothing that is eternal and sacred.
没有什么是不可以被亵渎的。
Nothing is beyond defilement.
这就是社会发展与理想主义落到实处后的样子，
This is what social development and idealism look like when put into practice.
也是对现代社会更精准的描述。
It is also a more accurate description of modern society.
无法落锤的审判。
Unverdict Ted trial.
荒芜拉普兰德在剧情中无意识扮演的，
Wasteland Lapland, unconsciously playing a role in the plot.
正是这样一种发展的动力。
It was precisely such a driving force for development.
它主导着我们倾向于人还是兽，
It dominates our inclination towards humanity or beast.
选择文明或是荒芜的手段。
Choose the means of civilization or desolation.
这并非一种绝对中立，
This is not an absolute neutrality.
更不是和稀泥，
It's not about muddying the waters.
而是非善非恶，
But neither good nor evil
不以人的意志而转移。
does not change according to human will.
没有赤罪四夜，
There is no sin of serving at night.
伊雷尼们的诉求也已凝聚。
The demands of the Irene Ness have also coalesced.
没有德克萨斯与拉普兰德，卢
No Texas and Lapland.
奇诺们与修车工们也会走向自己的明天。
Luke Hillis and the mechanics will also walk towards their own tomorrow.
我想，这就是整个叙拉古剧情中，
This is the entire plot of Syracuse.
借由文明是否虚伪、人兽是否有别的命题，
Do humans and beasts have other propositions?
希望传达的终极答案。
The ultimate answer to convey.
无论文明是否虚伪、压抑、祸乱人心，它都将作为人们生活与思考的具象化，
It will all be a tangible representation of people's lives and thoughts.
在历史上描绘出自己的轨迹。
Historically depicted their trajectory.
我们要守住为人的底线，
We must uphold the human descent.
也要意识到文明的规则始终都有着自己的局限。
It is also important to recognize that the rules of civilization always have their own limitations.
但无论是想做赤罪四叶那样的高尚者，
But whether one wishes to be a noble like Holofson's Nightwalker,
甘比诺·卡彭这样有声有色的凡人，
Gambino Capon, such a colorful and lively mortal,
还是拉普兰德这样的自由孤狼，
still a lone wolf like Lapland,
我们都无法也无需纠结于真伪，
we all do not need not worry about the truth or falsehood.
唯有对自己的面具保持清醒，
Only remain clear about your own mask.
投身狂欢的宣召。
engaging in the revelry.
到此，有关揭幕者们本篇的解析已经告一段落。
The analysis of this chapter of the Revelatores has come to an end.
在视频的最后，
At the end of the video,
聊完所有的叙事意图与故事主旨，
after discussing all the narrative intentions and story themes,
我们总算能好好聊聊开头提出的那个问题了。
we can finally properly discuss the question raised at the beginning.
为什么说揭幕者们为长夜灵光以来的理想主义故事拉上了终幕？
The Revealers brought the idealistic story of Near El since the Long Night to a conclusion.
众所周知，长夜灵光是明日方舟理想主义故事最成功的篇章，
It is the most successful chapter of the idealistic story of Tomorrow's arc.
也在最艰难的时刻扛起了方舟剧情的大旗。
Even in the most difficult moments, he carried the banner of the arc storyline.
之后的每次半周年剧情
After each half-yearly plot,
都以理想主义为主题展开，
all are centered around idealism.
也都涉及社会层面的政治交锋、
All also involve political confrontations at the societal level.
现实变迁。理想主义在现实背景中突破层层束缚，
Idealism breaks through layer upon layer of constraints in the real world.
在复杂群像中抵达属于自己的终点。
In a complex collective, reaching one's own endpoint.
这样的浪漫构成了我们阅读这些剧情的快乐源泉。
But the source of our joy in reading these stories.
但这样的浪漫
But such romance
也有自己表达的极限。
also has its own limit of expression.
理想主义终究需要落到实处，
Idealism ultimately needs to be put into practice.
而现实的步步紧逼，
And the relentless pressure of reality.
同样让我们难以寻回曾经仍然能沉浸宏大故事的真心。
Similarly, let us find it difficult to regain the sincere heart that could immerse itself in grand stories.
于是，理想主义的故事从长夜灵光的宏大史诗，
The story of idealism begins with the grand epic of Near El at Dawn,
变为叙拉古人的现实交错，
transformed into the reality of the Saraksa people,
历经崔林特尔梅之间的浪漫与叙事反转，
endured the romance and narrative twist of Cretan Els Golden,
最后在揭幕者们中
finally among the Revealers.
却骤然滚进了叙拉古的泥潭。
But suddenly he rolled into the mud pit of Syracuse.
在这里，理想主义都成为了反讽的对象。
Idealism has all become an object of irony.
面对卡彭钻空子、搞市民积分这样身临其境的桥段，
Facing the scene where Capen exploits loopholes in the citizen point system,
我们很难不发出尴尬而不失真实的微笑。
it is difficult for us not to emit an awkward but honest smile.
毕竟，这才是现代社会中无处不在的现实。
This is the reality that exists everywhere in modern society.
它看起来承诺了人类权利和自由，
It seemed to promise human rights and freedom.
但你想拿它，还得自己苦哈哈的来拿。
But you'll have to come and get it yourself.
每个揭幕者们的角色身上
Each protagonist's role.
都有着自己的无力和反讽，
All of them have their own helplessness and irony.
甚至他们所有的诉求
Even their every demand.
都没有得到完满的实现。
None of them were fully realized.
但反过来，在这么真实的一个剧本里面，
In such a realistic script,
他们的不同选择
their different choices,
仍然能带给自己不同的戏码与结局，
still able to bring different plots and endings.
能告诉我们诚实的面对自己的人性与兽性，
Honesty in facing one's humanity and beastline's ass.
不只是树立、
Not only is it about establishing,
坚持，更要践行自己的理想。
it's more important to practice one's own ideals.
这又何尝不是一个科幻故事呢？
Isn't this also a science fiction story?
在长夜灵光之后，
After the long night, Near El,
又和鹰角一起长大2岁多的我们，
we grew up together with Hyper G or YPH for more than 2 years.
谈及理想主义时，
When talking about idealism,
最多的也莫过于相见欢中会提到的百味杂陈吧。
the most diverse would be the mixed bag mentioned in Meeting Joy, right?
理想主义的宏大
The grandeur of idealism.
已经难以在现实主义的故事中留下。
It is already difficult to leave a mark in a realistic story.
现实一点说，就算再写出来其他的桥段，
Even if we write out other bridge segments,
难道还能比博士、特雷西亚和总辖他们更震撼吗？
could it be more shocking than Octo Teresa and Director?
我们所能看到的，反而是理想主义的规矩。
On the contrary, it is the rules of idealism.
就像揭幕者们中大书特书的狂欢节这个节日，
Like the Festival of Carnival, which is prominently featured among the revelers.
在人文学科中就有着截然相反的2种诠释。
In the humanities, there are 2 completely opposite interpretations.
一派认为它淡化了阶级，
One faction believes it has diluted class,
解放了自由，释放了社会压力；
relieved social pressure.
另一派却认为
The other faction, however, believes
看起来极度反叛与平等的狂欢时刻，
It looks like a moment of extreme rebellion and equality.
最后反而是告诉你，只有过节的时候才能平等，
Only during holidays can equality be achieved.
平常该怎么样还是怎么样。
As usual, things should be the same.
如今的我们能怎样看待理想主义呢？
How can we view idealism now?
一般人可能轻声尬笑几句也就过去了，
Ordinary people might just laugh awkwardly and move on.
但揭幕者们还真就在 yes or no 中间选择了个在。揭幕者们的写作与设计前提，
The premise of the writers and designers of the Reveal Arrest.
就是把之前所有的理想主义故事都推到最深的泥潭中。
Just push all the idealistic stories from before into the deepest mud.
它终结了理想的光鲜亮丽，
Handed the ideal of dazzling brilliance.
展现出了它的鲜血淋漓与机缘巧合。
It showcased its blood-soaked state in the fortuitous circumstances.
可是，哪怕理想主义都草台班子到了这个模样，
Even idealism is in this sorry state.
它的价值却仍然在废墟中闪着光。
But it's still shown in the ruins.
可以说，揭幕者们的写法与角色情节安排带着炫技的成分。
The writing style and character plot arrangements of the Reveal Arrest have a show-off component.
这也导致许多剧情中的梗和意义不易理解。
Many plot twists and meanings are difficult to understand.
这期视频讲到这里，
This video ends here.
大概也只是带着大家走马观花而已。
It's probably just a matter of taking everyone on a tour.
但我相信，大家肯定已经从中
Everyone must have figured out by now that
找到自己想要的东西了。
found what I wanted.
亮着眼睛描绘宏大理想剧目的时刻已经结束了，
The moment of painting a grand idealistic drama with bright eyes has ended.
但我们为了自己的理想，
But we fight for our ideals.
在泥泞中奋力挣扎的剧目
The drama struggling through the mud.
也已经开始了。正好辞旧迎新的日子也已过去，
The day of bidding farewell to the old and welcoming the new has passed.
2025年，
2025年.
就让我们与揭幕者们一同拉开新生活的帷幕，
Let's open the curtain of a new life together with the revelers.
也一同投身现代生活这场假面狂欢的舞蹈吧。
Let's also dance in this masquerade ball of modern life.
这里是扬言，求个3连和关注，
Request to like and follow.
感谢大家的收看，
Thank you all for watching.
我们下期视频再见，拜拜。